I am calling this work session to order. The date is February 24th, 2023. Pursuant to ARS 38-431-02, notice is hereby given to the members of the City Council and to the general public that at this work session, we may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public. City Clerk, can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Daggett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Aslan.
Here.
Councilmember Harris. Here. Councilmember House.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Here.
Councilmember Sweet. Here.
Thank you. Councilmember House, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Well, please stand if you're able.
Councilmember Sweet, will you read our mission statement?
The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
Oh, let the record reflect that that was the city attorney's microphone causing that echo.
I own it.
Councilmember McCarthy, would you read our land acknowledgement?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as their home.
Thank you. Next up, we have public participation, and I have two people for public participation. The first is David Sunland.
Hello. Thought I'd give y'all a just quick report card on transportation, winter report card. I'm sure y'all excited about that. Just an overall transportation report card. So urban trail system, good solid A. The mountain line, given how small Flagstaff is, good solid A. Roadway snow clearance, given how much snow we've had a decent amount. I'd give that a good solid A. The recent adoption of a transportation amendment, actually acknowledging that pedestrians, cyclists, and transit actually matter, A+, excellent. Dealing with the sidewalks and the bike paths after snowstorms, big flat F. And F is an appropriate letter given the message that this does send to pedestrians and cyclists. Not only is the buck passed for maintaining the sidewalks to the property owners, but there's really no enforcement of the law that the citizens maintain the public sidewalks. So I would suggest, and really all you have to do is go down any commercial street in this town and you will find that very few people bother with the sidewalks. I'd especially recommend going along Cedar Avenue, where not only do they not plow the side or shovel the sidewalks, but some of the businesses actually block the entire property line with a pile of snow and the public sidewalk and the bike path. So Mount Elton Middle School students either have to climb over a pile of snow or walk into the roadway to get around it. The pedestrians and cyclists of this town deserve better. So I would say in the short term, enforce the rule. Have code enforcement go out, and especially in the commercial areas, especially near schools, especially near bus stops, enforce the rule. Make it as punitive as possible. Send the message that, even if they don't care whether pedestrians live or die, the city does. In the medium term, as soon as possible, have the city start taking on the responsibility themselves It's a public sidewalk. It's public bike paths. Pedestrians, according to this most recent amendment to the transportation plan, pedestrians, cyclists do matter. So act accordingly. So I would love to see the city take it on, not only for the sake of pedestrians and cyclists and their safety, but also to support the mountain line. How many people are going to ride the mountain line in the winter if they can't get to it safely? So just please implement the elements of this recent transportation amendment as soon as possible. Let's start acknowledging that pedestrians, cyclists, and transit riders do actually matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sunland. I'm unsure of the last name, but the first name looks like Mark.
How you doing? Oh, I'm nervous. It's my first time in here. But I have
Well,
an issue-
welcome.
Thank you. I have some issue about the towing companies in Flagstaff, Arizona. I stayed at 116 East Butler, and I had some cars, my 3 cars actually illegally towed by Jet Towing, and I put in a claim with the city, and they said that they denied my claim. So I didn't understand why they denied my claim. I talked to Maria, and I talked to Karen. Now, I got the deed in my name. The deed's in my name for the property. So the cars are on private property. So they told them, so I put in a claim for them, and then also had some property that was thrown away by the city of Flagstaff with an extension. I had to February 6th to get my property off my property. So it's kind of hard to explain. February 3rd, I put in an extension to get my property. The 6th came. I was in Phoenix at district court, and I got pictures from one of my friends showing that it was 2 Flagstaff garbage trucks, along with 23 personnel with the city throwing away my property. Now, the judge didn't see the extension till like, I want to say like 4 o'clock. So I get a call like 4:41 saying that they gave me a 10-day extension to get my property. Well, the problem with that is 9 o'clock that morning, city of Flagstaff and their employees, because I got pictures of that, shows them on my property, throwing all my property away. So and then for the Flagstaff police, again, for them to be surveyors, which they're not, to tell someone where their property is and where their property is not is unacceptable. So what I suggest is you just give the Flagstaff police some diversity training, because some situations when they come into certain situations, they don't know how to handle it, and they just want to believe certain individuals and they want to go one way. But again, I've had my property thrown away twice, and I'm still yet to date to get any compensation from the city. You know what I'm saying? Even though it was blatantly, they jumped the gun, blatantly. And then all of a sudden they said, I asked them, where's my property? They said, well, it's probably in the trash, Mark, in the dump, Mark, with 2 Flagstaff police trucks on that property that I own, that's deeded in my name, that's recorded in my name. For them to do that is unacceptable. So the city needs to take some accountability. Someone needs to take accountability for that. You know what I mean? But for illegally towing cars and throwing property away, it's unacceptable.
Thank you. May I ask him a question, not about the,
Public participation is simply public participation. You can direct staff to look into an issue, but
Okay.
I can tell you that that's happening already.
can we make sure that, that we follow up on this? Okay, thank you. Next up, item 5 is review of the draft agenda for the March 7th, 2023 City Council meeting. Does anyone have any comments or questions, concerns? Okay. Seeing none, we will move down to item number 6, which is a proclamation for Women's History Month. Do we have someone here to receive the proclamation? All right. Well, we are going to have Councilmember House read the proclamation, and I guess if no one is here to receive it, I'm sorry? Okay, thank you.
All right, it's my honor to read this proclamation. It's my first time doing this, so forgive me for any flubs. But before reading it, I also just want to acknowledge and thank the CODA Commission members who assisted in writing, Jean Toner and Bethany Camp, as well as the staff liaison, Lisa Cada, who assisted in writing as well. The City of Flagstaff joins the national celebration of women's history and the contributions of women of every race, class, and life experience in shaping the growth, prosperity, resiliency, and legacy of our nation in ways both documented and undocumented. And women in this country have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every area of the life of our nation, representing a significant portion of the labor force, including enduring legacies in volunteer services, philanthropic and cultural institutions, the United States military, and in local, state, and national governance. And we recognize that despite the continuing disparities in wages and opportunities they face, women continue to serve as leaders for their own rights and the civil and economic rights of others, and we honor the national call to reverse the years in our history for which the roles of women in shaping that history have been overlooked and undervalued. And we reflect on the words of President Jimmy Carter, who in his 1980 message designating the first National Women's History Week, noted that too often women who worked to build this nation were, quote, unsung and sometimes their contributions went unnoticed, but the achievements, leadership, courage, strength, and love of the women who built America was as vital as that of the men whose names we know so well, end quote. And the National Women's History Alliance has announced that the theme of 2023's Women's History Month commemoration is celebrating women who tell our stories, recognizing the generations of women from all backgrounds who have long been instrumental in passing on our heritage in word and in print to communicate the lessons of those who came before us. Those backgrounds in Flagstaff include Native American women, African American and Black women, Latino women, AAPI women, women of the labor movement, and LGBTQI+ women and girls, all of whom we recognize and hear as writers, poets, artists, and leaders. We join in recognizing that women's stories play a major role in the broader human story, expanding our understanding of each other and strengthen the bonds we share in, as, and for our community. And the Commission on Diversity Awareness recommends the designation of March 2023 as Women's History Month in unison with national and statewide observances. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Becky Daggett, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2023 as Women's History Month in the City of Flagstaff in recognition and celebration of the vital role of women in American history.
Thank you for that, Councilmember House. Moving down to item number 7, February work anniversaries. Take it away, Shannon.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Shannon Anderson, your Senior Deputy City Manager. Our presentation is kind of short today. There's only a few employees who are actually celebrating their anniversary this month in February, at least that 5, 10, 15, 20, and then 25 and greater. So our first is Paul Lancaster. He is one of our recreation officials as part of our pros team, so he's celebrating 5 years this month. We also have our 10-year anniversary with Clayton Rethlake. He works for the airport operations and ARF team. Keeping our airport open right now is one of their large tasks with all this snow. And then our 25 years plus is Stacy Breckler-Nags. Many of us know her better as SBK. She is celebrating 39 years with the city of Flagstaff this month. What an incredible time frame with our organization. I think she was challenged, though, to 42 years? Was that 42? Yeah. So we've definitely challenged her to stay on a bit longer. Some of the exciting changes for SBK this year with becoming the Grants and Contracts Emergency Management Director. She's also successfully hired the city's first emergency manager, which is pretty exciting for our team. And they are working towards creating an emergency management program for the city. She's busy recruiting a new grants and contracts manager as well, so hopefully we will have that position filled soon. And she's been instrumental in working with the county emergency management team to seek funds to address flooding in our Flagstaff community, as well as the United Way of Northern Arizona agreement to establish volunteer events. All of this while she continues to work on ARPA funding and other grant funding requirements. So we just wanted to give a shout out to SBK. I know she's in the room. Oh, yay, come on up. She was listening to weather, so. Yeah, it's like The Price is Right.
Actually, I tell everybody I started when I was 12 here, because I'm not aging, right? No, just thanks. It's been fun working here. I love providing community service to our citizens and to our staff. My biggest thing is it can't happen without a team. Our staff are amazing. I'm so proud of them. They're professional. They're knowledgeable. I mean, we work great as a team to get projects done here for our citizens, so it's wonderful. And I love having my kids living here and sharing in all the project work that we've done over the years as a city. So thank you.
And that is the last of our February work anniversaries. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, and congratulations to all of our employees. And SBK, I hope that you do plan on staying for another 49? All right, next up, item number 8, the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, pardon me. This report is also very brief. There's just one item that we're highlighting here, and it will also be the topic of a discussion with your joint meeting with the county coming up. But it's an exciting topic, and it is the High Country Training Academy, which graduated its very first class on Friday of last week. Thank you to the council members who attended. It was a packed house here in the council chambers, quite literally. A lot of family and friends to help honor the several graduates. There's a lot of information about that in my report, and I think you'll hear a lot more about it next week. We're just excited because it was the inaugural event of our new post-academy here in Flagstaff, where we can now train our officers and deputies for the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff's Office, and the university. It's a very collaborative arrangement, a great partnership with the Coconino Community College, and notably to be able to train locally and have our trainees know about Flagstaff and train in Flagstaff and then be recruited into our respective law enforcement agencies. It's just a big plus rather than sending them across the state to train elsewhere. It's also a money saver. But most importantly, we just are very proud of the facility and the partnership that underlies it. Big props to many people, but specifically to Lieutenant Colin C. The report that I have for you has some great photographs of the ceremony. I will mention the graduates at the risk of pronouncing names, which I usually do. But we had Logan Brannon, Lilano Brown, Jacob Buckwald, Patrick Collins, Dominic Cortez, Kevin Johnson, Austin Kane, Dalton Laisley, and Dwayne Tiwa. I hope I have that right. The new graduates. So very happy to make this announcement, and you'll be hearing more about it. So stay tuned on that. Appended to my report are 3 monthly updates. We're going to give you verbal overviews of 2 of those. That would be PROS, our Parks, Rec, Open Space, and Events division, followed by Economic Vitality. And I will turn it over to Rebecca and her cohorts to walk you through this report, and we look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Clifton. Good afternoon, everyone. Amy Hagan, the Assistant Parks and Recreation Director. Rebecca wanted to attend, but I stole it from her, and that's the way that goes. So we will dive, and I know Rebecca was just here a few weeks ago giving the monthly report for January, so this is coming at us pretty fast. Somehow time flies. Just ask SBK because she's still 12. So we will get this in hopefully full screen mode. Cool, there we go. Okay, monthly update for Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Events. We've got coming up soon our pickleball courts that were funded. This is just a rough conceptual design up here displayed on the screen. They will occur at Bushmaster Park. And there'll be 8 courts, they'll be lighted, and they will be amazing. We're very excited to deliver those to the community, so that will be coming at us soon. That is a lot of what park staff have been working on. Outside of also still continuing to deliver the Buffalo Park grant-funded project out there. We've had a little bit of a delay. There's been some weather, not sure if anyone's noticed. So in addition to that, we've had winter weather. A special thank you to Mayor Daggett and to Councilmember Sweet, who did ride-alongs this last storm. I'm sure that was an amazing experience, so thank you, honestly, for doing that with our team. But the winter weather has provided some delays, unfortunately, for some of our construction projects. So as soon as we can get the warmer spring temperatures here, we'll be moving very quickly toward those projects. Also in our parks, and this includes actually a snapshot of open space. So between our parks and open space locations along the urban trails system, there are 14 trail counters now within the entire network. This gives a snapshot of the month of February. Even though we had some different types of weather occurrences here, we still had over 16,000 passerbys at these 14 locations. That's pretty impressive. That tells us that Flagstaff walks and rides big time. Yeah, again, the higher earners of those trail counts are Buffalo Park, which was one of the reasons and facilitators behind that grant that we were awarded from State Parks, and also out at Picture Canyon and Mars Hill. All right, snow. I guess we're gonna still talk about snow. Have you ever wondered how large a snow event, what that effect has on some of our resources, like labor hours, equipment usage? It's a lot. We're beginning to start to track some of that data. It's pretty wild. So for the month of January, I tracked how many labor hours our team in pros spent on snow. It was over 1,000 hours. That's huge. That includes on our feet and in pieces of equipment. 70% of those hours were done in equipment, so mechanically replacing or relocating some of the snow. And then the other 30% done with our hands, shoveling or pushing it with snow throwers. In measuring that there was just under 62 inches of snow in the month of January, and knowing how much snow can at times weigh, when you think of like a 12-inch by 12-inch square tile, and then think of that volume, it's estimated that we moved millions of pounds of snow. Pretty crazy stuff. Really starts to put it in perspective, as I know those ride-alongs did that both Mayor Daggett and Councilmember Sweet performed. This is my public thank you to the team that moved snow. It's difficult. It's an enormous operation that we perform, and they are an amazing team. We're going to switch to a different color now. We're going to go purple, which is one of our branding colors for recreation. So in January, we did hold our annual Aquaplex membership drive. Through that drive, we have 579 new members to the Aquaplex, and 257 renewed their membership. So it was an excellent turnout this past January for our membership drive. We're going to continue to find ways to increase our membership base as we continue to roll out of a pandemic and into an endemic, and seeing what we can do. Some of that will be probably surveying the members. What do you want to see in these recreation centers, specifically a fitness and aquatics-oriented one with the Aquaplex, so we can ensure that we're providing the programming that our community says that they want. Did you know that we do offer indoor pickleball and badminton at the Aquaplex? So by all means, for those that are, especially with the weather outside, come play at the Aquaplex. It's a good time. Ask Deputy City Manager Heidi Hansen. Also, at our Hal Jensen Recreation Centers, that's our youth recreation center, youth basketball is in full buzzer mode. We had 280 registered youth this year right now playing. It's awesome to see. The kids are having a blast out there. We're also doing spring volleyball kicks off soon, so you'll see registrations for that. We've got women's teams and we have all gender teams in all levels of play. So we're excited to see the registration occur there. At Josie Montoya Community and Senior Center, a new elliptical machine that was budgeted this year for the recreation team there has arrived, and I'm pretty sure the patrons are really they're getting their elliptical movements in over there. It is, if you don't know about it, it's one of the quaintest fitness centers we offer in town. So by all means, check it out if you've never been there. That rec center also hosted a AARP free tax prep for our community in the month of January. So that was another neat annual offering that we provide there. The last photo there is the only sheet of ice in northern Arizona, and I love saying that because it is pretty impressive. That place is programmed from 5 a.m. to nearly midnight every day of the week. We hosted a handful of NAU games in the month of January, and there's on average at those NAU games 200 spectators piling into the ice rink to check it out. And we've been able to count that there were over 2,000 people in the month of January that joined us for public skate sessions. So it's still our ever popular only sheet of ice in Arizona. Then we're going to switch to a different color. Yellow, or gold I should say, is for open space. In the month of January, in February, we hosted a full moon hike at Buffalo Park. Excellent attendance, 36 people attended. Pretty cool to get out there and enjoy I think one of our most coveted beautiful parks in Buffalo, and hitting up that native loop trail there that is a part of that grant-funded project. So that was pretty neat. Open Space just continues to host amazing events for the community, and working with all the stewards and our volunteers in the community too. We have a new employee in Open Space. Sarah began January 23rd. And that is a one-year grant-funded position, so we've been able to welcome Sarah to the team and getting her involved in meeting individuals and starting to learn all the programs that Open Space, as well as all of PROS, offers to the community. And then this is kind of a myriad of all of our branded colors between parks, recreation, and open space. This is our events and marketing page, and so not sure, I know we were able to deliver some of the information to budget team today, but we are moving what we would call our athletic allocations. Those are our tournaments. Those are a lot of our permitted play that occurs on our outdoor fields and in our ball fields. We're moving that allocation piece of that task to our events and marketing team. Permitting events, that's their bread and butter, and so they're gonna kill it. I know they will. So we're doing a little bit of a shift as we continue to build our division. So moving that over there, 23 applications have already crossed our events and marketing team's desk, so we're getting ready for summertime, as we all know that this becomes an incredibly busy place. And the team continues to deal with our event permitting, and then starting to determine what our marketing looks like for our division, and how can we ensure that we're marketing to our community, and also finding out what our community wants. Upcoming this summer, before anybody forgets, because it's one of our signature events, will be concerts in the park. So get ready for that. We're going to continue our partnership on that with Coconino Parks and Rec, which we did that last summer, especially the month of July, which is National Parks and Recreation Month. So we look forward to continuing a more of a rotating location with our concerts in the park. So we reach different areas of the community this summer with that signature event. That's all I have. Any questions?
I have kind of a statement question. When is the deadline to apply to be a musician for your concerts in the park?
Excellent question. I want to say I heard this morning 16 applications have already come in. I believe the deadline might be coming up soon, as in maybe today, end of February.
Okay, if you're a musician and you happen to be watching the city council meeting live, you should get your application in ASAP.
Exactly. Any other questions?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Harris.
Yes, can you go back to the one-year grant-funded position that you have?
I can,
And tell me a little bit-
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a grant-funded position for only 1 year? Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so where did we get the grant?
You know, I am not the most educated on that. I apologize on that, Councilmember Harris. I believe the grant
Hey.
is, I'm
Amy.
gonna use my virtual lifeline with Rebecca Sayers.
Hi, everyone. Rebecca Sayers, Pros Director here. I'm trying to get my camera on. Apologies that I'm not there in person today, but thank you, Amy, for delivering this. So, Councilmember Harris, this is a one-year position. It's through the State Parks Heritage Fund. We are eligible to apply for it again for hopefully a second term. That is our plan, so that we'll have a 2-year fully funded position.
And can you tell me again what kinds of activities are under that position?
Yeah, so I think you've heard about this position when Robert was in front of you recently with an invasive weed grant, but primarily Sarah will be working to get school-age children out to our open spaces, educating them about outdoor education, environmental activities, what open space is, how they can participate, how they can learn and grow and benefit from being in the outdoors. Those are all things under her purview. We are still kind of developing the partnerships and the program itself, this being a brand new grant, but that's the intent behind the program.
Okay, so then this program, or she will be working with us through the summer, correct?
Yeah, so she actually started in January. She'll be with us for a full year
Okay,
to next January, and then hopefully another year after that.
okay, so is there any discussion about a summer program for kids with outdoor spaces?
Absolutely, yeah. I think, again, we're still developing the exact programming. We are trying right now to try to get on the school curriculum with teachers for the spring, but certainly in the summer, there will be all kinds of opportunities for kids in the summer. I'm not sure if it would be as full-fledged as, say, a summer camp. I'm not sure we have the staffing for that. That's a pretty intensive type of programming, but there will be guided hikes, family hikes, hikes for kids, activities for kids, crafts related to the outdoors, all of that kind of thing will take place through the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember McCarthy has a question.
Could you very briefly describe the music in the park, like what park it's at and blah, blah?
They're going to be at rotating parks, Councilmember McCarthy. In the past, a lot of them have been at Jim Cullen Park, and then we've done some at Bushmaster Park. This last summer, so the summer of 2022, we did a variety of parks, and so we're looking forward to doing that again. There's some thought process that goes into that, because we need to ensure that there's ample parking if individuals are going to drive there, and that we don't impede on a neighborhood in a negative light. Last summer, I believe we Mobile Haven, there was still Jim Cullen, there was still Bushmaster Park, there was Peak View with the county. that park, and I want to say a few others. So I think we're reevaluating that again, and we'll ensure that we're spreading it around, I picture the city in almost 4 quadrants and ensuring that we spread that, but as long as we're not creating a negative impact with our concerts in the park.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris?
I have a lot of questions today, right? So have you thought about going to Willow Bend, to that little park area? Because that would really serve the people in Brandon Homes, because they could just walk over and they wouldn't need to worry about driving. So
I think
have
that's
you-
an excellent suggestion, and that is a county park, so I think great suggestion, Councilmember Harrison. I'll definitely follow up on that and see if that's viable.
Okay, thank you.
And, excuse me, Rebecca just weighed in and said that concerts in the park, the deadline for bands to apply is March 18th.
I knew there was an 8.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, sorry, one more. So are you looking for bands or individual musicians? Do they
I
have
belie-
to already have a group?
I believe either can apply.
Okay. And then with the individual musicians, do they just play by themselves or do, okay.
They do, yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council Members. Heidi Hansen, Interim Deputy City Manager. I will be going over some highlights for Economic Vitality Division for January. I know we're ending February, but that will take us a while to get all of those stats put together, and we will share those with you through a monthly email. As far as the airport, I can't thank the ARF team enough for the snow removal they've been doing, not to mention has all the snow equipment that Stacy Breckler and Aggs has helped us receive over the years has been in full force, and we have only had our runway down one day, and it was right back up to a 333 mark shortly after. Any cancellations that happened were definitely just through the airlines and their decision to fly or not fly was not because our runway was not eligible for flying. I also wanted to thank Claire Harper, our airport communications manager, because she has been getting us some major news coverage on how well this airport has been taken care of. And we just had another great installment from Fox 10 yesterday that I'll be happy to send out to all of you. So hats off to Claire as well. Brian Gall, our airport programs manager, he is so busy getting all of our CARES grants and all of that taken care of. The next major project is making sure our entire terminal sprinkler system is changed out. And so you'll be seeing some changes if you're flying out that, will require some movement there. There's some nice picture there of what they deal with the planes and making sure that we get things cleared so somebody can fly out safely. Also, our ARF, when they're not busy doing the runway, they actually do activities at the elementary schools, and they encourage young people to maybe want to be a pilot or actually work at an airport. So they come out and they talk about the job that they do in their day-to-day. Airport marketing, we not only do marketing outward so that people will actually want to fly, but we also do inward where we actually hope that our locals will fly as well. So that's totally in full stream. And we also did a small fly library so that you can, I can't even say it, flybrary. All right. Claire is so cute. But anyway, we're working with Richard and the library staff to make sure that we have plenty of books and magazines so that you can take with you on your flight. You do not have to return them, but we will definitely be expanding that in the hold room. I would like for all businesses that might be listening in that they can market their business at the airport. We have a complete media kit, and we are actually taking care of our marketing in-house, and we have lots of ways for them to market their business. Our employments is somebody that takes a seat on the plane was actually a little bit short of 2022, and that was of course because some flights were canceled because of snow, but flat to 2021. So we're still holding our own, even though we no longer have United Airlines. For community investment, we have beautification, arts, and science, and as you can see, we have Beautiful project still happening. You see this picture of the Willow Bend pollinator mural. And honestly, the work that Jana and her team are doing is just amazing. You also see somebody having a seat here where they're working on the Coconino Scroll, the project, the metal project, fence project that you will see out the airport, hopefully this time in the summer, along with some nice medallions that tell the story of Flagstaff that will be inset into the sidewalk. And then there's multiple projects you can read about. We're still working on the library front entrance ADA project. We sometimes are working really hard on that, and sometimes we're closed because of the fact they have to do all that snow removal in order to get work done. So we're going to be seeing that. And then I'm not going to spend much time on this one, but because you saw it in great detail, was the Downtown Connection Center, which will actually be a destination piece. I will say that now. People will come here to look at that piece. And then we have lots of other projects. We're going to be doing a phone booth library with Jake Bacon and his little library system. You'll be seeing that over at the Visitor Center. And then, of course, we did a call for action on the traffic signal cabinets. So we actually asked local artists to wrap with their artwork our traffic cabinets to make them look more appealing and to actually tell the history and something that's different and diverse about Flagstaff. So you'll be seeing more of those. I'm going to keep moving and moving and moving. Sorry for the scrolling. Park Flag, always busy, probably even busier now, because as much as we want to be nice to everybody that are parking everywhere, we still have to ask them to park correctly. But we're still acting as ambassadors. That is our main role, is to be an ambassador to those that want to park in downtown. And of course, they've been helping with snow operations with Amy's crew, going out and making sure the gazebos and all of that is clear so that people have a place to sit. Business attraction, the attraction efforts, we of course can't talk about a lot of those. They remain confidential until they are actually happening, but I will tell you Jack Fitchett, our business attraction manager, has been in full swing. And in January, he was speaking to a retail business that needs 180,000 square feet. He talked to a new sports retailer who's looking for 50,000 square feet. And he talked to a restaurant for 5,000 and a manufacturing business for 400,000 square feet. If we cannot get them the square footage that they're looking for and they cannot break it up, then we definitely work with our friends at Econa, Gail Jackson, the president, to make sure they stay in northern Arizona. So all of that work is in conjunction with all of our partners. Our sustainable automotive rebate program is major. It is happening. People are actually asking for that rebate, and we've assisted over 40 people in our community because they bought local. So that is going to continue to happen. We're continuing to work on that business one-stop shop with our community development team, and then, of course, major other highlights. Business retention expansion, we are working with all of our businesses that need our support. We are definitely working with a lot of them that are having some woes with the minimum wage and making sure that we can give them successful information to make it viable to continue to do business in Flagstaff. Right now, John Saltonstall is working on the ARPA Small Business Grant Program that the council has offered monies to them. And we're coming back to you in March to tell you how that rounded out for tourism and for economic development. And I think you're going to be pretty impressed with what we did, but I think you're going to be blown away with how many people applied. Moving on to the library, the stats are good. We have a lot of circulation going on, and this is talking about not just coming through the door, we're talking about online, we're talking about them calling. That team works so hard, and they make sure that if somebody wants material, they can get it. There's also an awesome year in review from the East Flagstaff Library, so you can click on that link, and I hope that you will look at it. We continue to get amazing patron comments about how great the library is and how everybody would love to work there and be a part of it, and they appreciate our staff, and I can tell you it's because the entire staff takes that job completely seriously. So I just want to thank that team for that, and we continue to offer major youth services programming, which I think is very, very important for those families that need to get their kids out of the house. Last but not least, tourism and visitor services. January, amazing numbers. We beat occupancy, we beat average daily rate, and we beat revenue per available room. Thank you, Discover Flagstaff, for continuing to doing a terrific job marketing this destination and for all of our stakeholders. We had 20 print articles, 103 digital articles, 11 procured stories, and 7 media assist just in January. So well done. And then we also had FAM tours. They're called familiarization tours, where we brought people in. We brought journalists in to learn about our city and to write about us, and they are writing about us. If you like, when I show the highlights down here, you can always click on any of those links and you can read about some of the stories that were written about us this past month. Places like sledding at the Flagstaff Snow Park, that doesn't just happen. Meg Roeder works very hard to get them to talk about the snow park. The 5 family-friendly road trips that you can take with an electric vehicle. Just want to throw that out, Councilmember Aslan. That happened. Please read that article. And then, of course, things like, why is Pluto no longer called a planet? Frustrating, is that not? But we tell the story of Lowell Observatory and much more. Film, I know, is another up and coming. We did not have any film permits this month of January, but we are actively pursuing and working on more film. And then our website analytics were great. Our domestic visitation, which is a very big one for us, grew over 142%. So I'm telling you, they want to come here. We had email campaigns, we had sweepstakes, we had a 200% increase in entries to win trips back to Flagstaff and to extend their stay. So this is great partnerships that we have where our destination hotels and our attractions and businesses like Councilmember Sweets offer so that others will want to come here and spend their time with us. Sales have been amazing. We had international travel trade. They're actually getting ready to gear up and go international again. Whew, how exciting will that be? And then we will also have our marketing media relations manager join that travel trade manager on those trips so that we can not only get media coverage, but we can get tour coverage and everything else. We'll let you know how that goes. Our meetings and events and conference manager, Jessica Young, she is going in the state to obviously make sure people know they can have their conferences here, and she's actually securing room nights. Over 39 room nights were secured just this month. Walk-ins in retail are still up at the visitor center, and we are actually working very diligently answering those calls on that winter recreational snow play hotline. So thank you, visitor center. Again, we work with the county and everybody to make sure that our winter recreation map and our information is out and that people understand where they should play safely. We also participated with iHeart Pluto Festival, and the list goes on. We are still trying to actively recruit for the city of Flagstaff. It is top of mind and top priority for our city manager, and we are continuing to put out ads outward and inward to let people know that this is a cool career to have. Any questions for anybody?
Councilmember McCarthy.
Just a correction, Pluto is a planet.
Thank you. I agree.
Any other questions, comments, smart aleck remarks? Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Your staff is always on fire and so busy. So thank you.
Appreciate it, Mayor. Thank you.
City Manager, anything else?
No, unless there are questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions for City Manager? Okay, we are going to move down to item number 9, timely public access to traffic study data. And one thing that I neglected to say early on is that if you were in the audience or online and you wish to speak on an agenda item, please submit a comment card to our city clerk. Hello.
Hello, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is David Lemke. I'm a transportation engineer associate here at the city, and today I will be presenting on timely public access to traffic study data. It was a citizen petition. Let me go ahead and throw this into slideshow mode. Alrighty, well, let's dive on into it. So the petition purpose, staff received a petition November 15th, 2022, requesting City Council establish a policy requiring staff to provide traffic study data to the public within 15 days of any request, or at least 7 days prior to any meeting, for example, City Council meetings, Transportation or Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, et cetera, set to discuss the findings and allow the public to present their interpretation of the data. So for some background, the city already has an established public record request process managed by the city clerk's office and governed by Arizona Public Records Law. The city of Flagstaff must abide by the Arizona Public Records Law. It states that any person may submit a request to examine or be furnished with copies of public records, and that the responding agency shall promptly respond to such requests. The time it takes to respond to the request will depend on the complexity of the request, volume of responsive documents, and other factors. And also, under the Arizona Public Records Law, public agencies are not required to create new documents in order to respond to a request. And I'm actually going to get some help from our city clerk here on this one.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Stacy Salzberg, City Clerk. So I was contacted as part of this particular petition because, as David just mentioned, we do have a public process or a public record process that's housed within the City Clerk Division. David also mentioned that, response times for many requests depend on many factors. That could include the complexity of the request, how many documents are being requested, also the staff time that's available to dedicate to fulfilling those requests. There's also a legal review component. We have our legal team review just about every document that we do release to just ensure that we're complying with the appropriate redaction and any sort of legal sensitivities. And of course, there's always other requests in the queue. So it's not, we're not just working on one at a time. There are often multiple public records requests that are ongoing simultaneously. And so one of the big concerns with my office with this particular request is that establishing more restrictive timelines for public records that's different than state law could be very problematic and honestly a little bit confusing because we would be kind of running two separate processes at one time. And again, given the response time challenges sometimes, we don't want to necessarily put other requests in a more important status than all the other requests that come in. We are also a little bit concerned that that might set a precedent for future, other types of record types, and a concern that we might see that this continues, putting us in a position where we are struggling to meet those timeframe requests. The petition as it's drafted is very broad and does include traffic data that could be coming from our private partners and not just from a city staff perspective. And so some of the access to that data is often out of our control, and so we don't always have the ability to request that data within a particular time frame. So those are just some of the concerns that are coming out of my office with concerns to this very specific ask. I'm happy to answer any questions as it may relate to those operations, but I'll turn it back over to David to finish up the presentation.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you so much. So moving on to staff recommendation. So we do recommend that we maintain the existing requirements of the Arizona Public Records Law and not impose any new deadlines. But if you are interested in alternative options, we do have thought of a few. So if you would like to discuss some form of deadlines outside of the existing Arizona Public Records Law, we recommend limiting these deadlines to neighborhood traffic calming data collected internally by the city only. We feel that that was the main target of the petition, was for that sort of data. And we also recommend limiting these deadlines only to the Transportation Commission meetings. The specified data could be posted the Friday the week before the Transportation Commission meeting where the data is presented. And for context, the Transportation Commission meetings meet the first Wednesday of even-numbered months. So if we gave it to them the Friday before, they would have the weekend, 2 business days, and then the day of the meeting to review. So if you are interested in doing something beyond Arizona public records law, that is what we request, or what we'd recommend, but overall, we do recommend just to maintain the existing Arizona public records law. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So we'll take questions, and then I do have a speaker card. Councilmember McCarthy?
Thank you, Mayor. There's really 2 issues here. One is how long it takes to get a response to a public records request. And then the second issue is the data available before a commission meeting that they're going to discuss it? So I'm just thinking that those might be handled differently. It does make some sense to say, if they're going to say, for example, a transportation meeting, that if they're going to discuss data, that the data is available a few days ahead, maybe the Friday before or whatever, which is very different than just the broad, information requests. I do know that I was involved in one request that it took me almost 2 weeks to analyze and go through all the emails that were requested. And then after I did that, I think legal went through it, and there was an administrative person that kind of organized it for legal. So in that case, 2 weeks was not enough, obviously. So anyway, my main point is there's really kind of like 2 separate requests here. And I don't know if you want to comment to that.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember McCarthy, thank you for the question. So I just wanted to clarify the 2 parts of it is, one part is meetings, and the other part, or here I can go to the exact phrasing, is data that's not related to a meeting, like data that they just ask for unrelated to a meeting. I agree that those are 2 separate things, and I agree it could be more important to have that data before the meeting where it's presented, which is why, if you are interested as a council as a whole to explore this further, we would recommend, at least for Transportation Commission meetings, to make that the Friday before, which is typically when we do try to post the data. But beyond that, we would recommend just sticking with the existing Arizona public records law, which is worded it's by the complexity of the requests and the staffing resources.
Okay, so even if we don't officially change this policy, I think it should be the goal of commissions to have data available that's going to be discussed. And I'll just say that as an unofficial comment. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Council Member. Any other questions or comments? All right, I would like to take comment from Brian Lee Wilson. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you, Madam Mayor. In December, I spoke about accurate reporting and public access to traffic data. One example for today is from 2020, after the Woody Way Gate opened. Staff conducted a study and reported the results. Since then, many statements have relied on that report. As late as September 2021, Councilmember McCarthy commented on University Avenue traffic and said, quote, "When we opened up Woody Way, that traffic went up only about 10%. But that study had a design flaw. A little later, subsequent studies confirmed a much bigger increase that still continues to grow. The latest shows a 54% increase on University. Another example is the circle at Majestic. Tubes were laid at the edge of Boulder Point. Westbound traffic pass 2 homes and give us a read on incoming speeds. Eastbound cars pass the last house and leave, tracking exit speeds. Last June, staff said speeds were down by 2 miles per hour and asked for approval. Concerns were raised about risks to bike and ped traffic. Councilmember McCarthy asked whether, quote, all this trouble is worth it. all this trouble is worth it if at all we've slowed down cars as 2 miles per hour. I don't know. If you dive deeper, that reduction is from a tiny increase for inbound traffic, averaged with a much larger impact on outbound cars. You could really ask, should we spend $70,000 on a circle that increases risk for bike and ped, has little or no impact on speeds entering Boulder Point, but it slows down cars by 3 miles an hour as they leave? Is that worth it? People might say, you're right, it's only 1 mile per hour inbound, but we are slowing down cars that are leaving by 3 miles per hour. That's more important and worth the risk and money. So maybe it still gets approved, but that discussion never took place because we didn't get the data before the meeting. Council talked about possibly modifying the petition's timelines. Staff's suggestions are reasonable, specifically a Friday deadline. But I'd like to make sure the data provided includes the summary reports and raw data I've received in the past. I'd also like to confirm a response time for fulfilling future requests, even if a study is not yet currently on any agenda. This item is important to other neighborhoods as well. I have another 25 signed petitions here today, including 18 from Pine Knoll Village. They border Woodland Drive, which is another street scheduled for future mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for our commenter? Thank you very much. Thoughts? City Attorney Sterling,
Yes.
if council were to move toward one of these changes, wouldn't it need to be on a, is this something that can just take direction, or would it need to be noticed on a future agenda?
If council wanted to go ahead and give direction tonight for a Friday deadline, something along those lines, that policy change could be put into place. It would come to a future agenda for approval, however.
Okay, thank you.
That said, from a legal perspective, I do want to weigh in and just indicate under 39-120-101, while the word promptly in response to public records requests is there, not every public records request is the same. Some are much more voluminous than others. Courts have interpreted that as within a reasonable amount of time, just so the council and the public are aware.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris, thank you.
So do we have any idea what the average time is for our public requests to be completed or filled?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Harris. It varies widely. It really depends on the complexity of the request. We have some that we're able to respond to within a day. We have some that can take upwards of 3, 4, 5 weeks.
I'm sorry. And so this request would ask us to alter, to put the, was it 15 days, within 15 days, I think?
So that is the request that came forward within the petition. My office's recommendation is that we stick to the current response using our normal process. However, we've adjusted a possible option, which is to release data, neighborhood data that's collected by the city the Friday before a Transportation Commission meeting. So it would alter it slightly, but it would be just for a very specific, particular data set.
And if I may, Council and Councilmember Harris, Mayor and Council, my recommendation from the legal perspective is to stay with state law. And without impacting everything by instituting a 15-day limit as the city clerk's office recommends. I'm wholeheartedly behind that recommendation as well. To deal with this specific issue by the Friday, disclosure, I think that would probably resolve the issue here. If anything happens, that would be my recommendation as well.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, did I see you?
Yeah, well, I'll comment. I feel obliged to weigh in here. My hesitancy is to micromanage something like this in any way whatsoever. I think the system as it currently stands generally works and contextually has flexibility already built into it. I understand where this request is coming from, and I do see value to the alternative recommendations that have been put forth. I think there's kind of a sweet spot there. I'm a little bit surprised that this fair proceeded to this stage, and I sense a lot of hesitancy up here around it. But if we were to move forward with any of these recommendations, it would be the two that are on the screen right now for me. I'm okay with that. I don't think we should open up this hood and tinker too much. We could end up breaking something worse than we anticipated.
Thank you. So is there any support for directing staff to have all materials that are available, have them available by the Friday before the meeting? Or?
I'm a yes.
Yes. Councilmember Harris?
But I have one more question before I say.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, City Clerk, do you have any idea what other cities our size might do? Or do they have one person that is only responsible for public records requests? Do you have any idea? And I'm not,
Again, it varies widely. There are many communities that have kind of a group of 2 or 3 that do handle all the public records requests that come through. I will say Flagstaff is a bit unique. We tend to have a few more public records requests than other communities, especially communities our size. That's not to say that others experience that same thing. So there are some that have 1, there's some that have a few, there are some that have none. So it kind of runs the gamut.
Councilmember Matthews?
Thank you, Mayor. In the spirit of transparency, I think that it's a good idea to have the data the Friday before the Transportation Commission meeting, whether that makes the meeting have to be rescheduled or something, if it takes longer to get it out there. But if it's data that is impacting a neighborhood, I think just for transparency sake, that we should have it available to them to review before a meeting. That seems reasonable without putting too much burden on staff.
Thank you.
Councilmember McCarthy?
Another thought is that we could leave this at the discretion of the commission, because the commission is the ones that are really making a decision on this, and they should maybe be the ones that decide what data they need and what data should go to the public on a given schedule. So, thank you.
Councilmember Harris?
Okay, I guess I'm just a little concerned about anomalies. So if there's a request for data and we're under this 15-day or whatever it is, and then we have some type of an emergency, fires, floods, we've done that in the past, what happens? That's my concern. How are we in between a rock and a hard place? And so I guess I would be more for leaving it the way it is.
Mayor, may I respond? So if this particular policy change was to go forward in a situation such as that, and we're not able to meet that 15-day or whatever is decided, We would be running contrary to city policy. However, we would not be running contrary to, the state law as it pertains to public records requests. Again, that language is a bit more broad. So while, yes, we would run afoul of our standing policy, we would not be up against any concerns from a state level.
And if I could just add to that, you can always be more restrictive at a local level than the state law, but you can't be less restrictive. That said, I stand by my recommendation that we stay with state law, and if you do anything at all with city policy, what's on the screen at a minimum, because that narrowly tailored approach would handle what you have before you today, rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater, if you will.
Thank you. Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm not sure if this is a question or just a comment, but part of what I'm kind of puzzling through or thinking through with this request is I would agree with sticking with the limitations that are put or the alternatives that are placed on this slide. My question, I think, is if we're talking about this specifically in terms of the Transportation Commission and ensuring that that information is available and publicly, would part of that policy be that if the information request is related to an agendized item, if the information cannot be provided in that time frame, that agendized item would be rescheduled? Is that part of the consideration here?
I think I'll defer that back to David. I do think there's some options there.
Thank you, council member. Yes, that's typically what would happen if we did set these deadlines and we weren't able to provide the data within that time frame. The risk of that is that the agenda item would have to be pushed further out, and that leads to more delays. So that's one of the negatives, or could be a negative side effect of imposing the deadlines.
Thank you. All right, so let's do thumbs, heads, whatever. I'm hearing some support for having data available the Friday before. I'm not hearing support for the first bullet item, and then I'm also hearing just leave it completely as it is. So can you indicate to me what you would like to request staff to move forward with? The first is having the data available the Friday before the meeting. Thumbs up, shake your head. Yes.
And Mayor, that's just for Transportation Commission information, correct?
Yes. 3. Okay, so there are 3 for that. Is everyone else saying that you'd like to just leave it as is? Okay, so we're going to leave it as is. Okay, related, item number 10, traffic calming in Boulder Point.
All right, Madam Chair, council members, thank you for having me back. Yeah, totally. So today, I will be presenting on the Boulder Point traffic calming petition. So to give you some background, because I realize some council members might not be very familiar with this project, citizens have requested the city address excessive speeding along University Avenue in the Boulder Point neighborhood. This has been an on and off issue along this road for the past 16 years. We had our first kind of concern about speeding back in 2007. And so to give you some context of the location, Boulder Point, as shown here, is off of West University Avenue in southwest Flagstaff. And to give you a little more background, University Avenue runs from Milton all the way into the neighborhood. And from Milton, I believe it's posted at 35, and it's a long, wide, straight road, which is perfect for going fast. And as you enter the neighborhood, it continues to be pretty wide and straight, And that's one of the reasons why there's consistent speeding along this road, is because you come from 35 mile per hours, you enter 25, but a lot of people, just the characteristics of the road, they continue to speed. And so we'll get into that more as we go along, but I just wanted to mention that on just kind of the characteristics of the road, the neighborhood, and kind of where we're at. And now I'd like to talk about the Residential Traffic Management Guide. This is the guide that governs traffic calming projects for the city of Flagstaff. And certain speed and vehicle volumes need to be met to qualify for traffic calming. Typically a citizen or a neighborhood would say, hey, we have issues on this street, will you please come and evaluate it? We'd set down tubes, collect data, and see, okay, like how fast is the speeding, and like, will it qualify for speeding? And a big important part of that is the 85th percentile speed, which is the speed at or below which 85% of drivers travel on the road. And generally, streets with a high 85th percentile speed compared to the speed limit will qualify for traffic calming. So this is just to give you an overview of the studies we've done and the results that we found. And for context, the speed limit on University Avenue, where we studied, is 25 miles per hour. And in order to qualify for traffic mitigation, you need to have a neighborhood impact score of 30 points or more. And that's based on speeding as well as volumes. So back in 2007, we got concerned about speeding, and we went and tested it, and we did find that it did qualify for traffic mitigation. You can see the 85th percentile speed was 33 miles per hour, which is quite high. And after we painted the parking lanes, that seemed to kind of help the issue for a while, but then we started to get more concerns from the neighborhood about speeding in 2018, 2019. And so after a few Transportation Commission meetings, we presented a few different solutions. And the first one we tried were medians and radar feedback signs. And as you can see in the after data in the September 2021, after we installed them in a temporary fashion, we found that the 85th percentile speed had been reduced to 29 miles per hour, and the neighborhood traffic score had gone down to 19 points. So it didn't qualify for traffic calming anymore, and the traffic was sufficiently calmed. We felt like our design was sufficient. But after talking to the neighborhood, we heard concerns that they weren't satisfied with how much the speed was reduced. I think you might have heard it before, reduced by 2 miles per hour in the 85th, so that's where that came from, down to 29. Even though it didn't qualify for traffic calming anymore, we said, okay, let's work with the neighborhood, because another issue was the bikes and pedestrians. The medians took away a good part of the bike lane and the parking lanes on that road. And so we wanted to find a better solution. And so we had another Transportation Commission meeting where we landed on the traffic circles, which are the current design, and those are the results. But we'll get into that more. But the 85th was reduced to 27 miles per hour, and the neighborhood impact score is all the way down to 10 points from a high of 40. And so I'll keep going, but we'll come back to this in a second. So this is to give you just for what's proposed now, this is the current design of what we want to do in this neighborhood. And it includes 3 raised crosswalks near Woody Way, a pedestrian crossing with curb extensions mid-block on University, 2 radar feedback signs that will remain regardless of how this project goes. Those are already permanently installed. And 2 traffic circles, one at University in Tamba and one at University in Majestic. And here's some pictures just of the temporary circles. And so now getting back to those results. So once we had the circles installed, we put tubes down again, collected data, and we found the 85th percentile speed had been reduced from 31 miles per hour to 27 miles per hour. I should mention, we started with 1 circle, and we found that didn't slow traffic in both directions, so we added another. We originally only had 1, then we added another one at Majestic. And the challenge of this project has been trying to accommodate bikes with the circles, as well as the vehicles. And in our final design, we're gonna have curb extensions before the circles to channel the cars and keep them from the sidewalks and make them have to do more horizontal deflections. So they have to slow down more, but temporarily we couldn't do curb extensions that were mountable by bikes, but we could do that in the final design. So the temporary design isn't perfect, but we just wanted to test it to see if it's even viable. But the final design has more elements that make it more effective. And so, but even with just the temporary design, we felt like it was very satisfactory. It had reduced the neighborhood impact score from 40 points to 10 points. And we did hear a lot of feedback from the neighborhood. There were some issues with the circles that they identified. which included ped and bike concerns, cutting in front of the circle, site distance issues, which were a lot of things we've been trying to address in the final design. For site distance, we went out and looked at the existing conditions, cut back some trees, made sure the sight lines were clear, and we've just been trying to address those concerns as we've been going. And this is just an example of the 60% design. This is at Tombaugh University. And as you can see, we've included those curb extensions that will be mountable by bikes, and we also have more clear pavement markings for how the bikes should use the circles. So getting back to the timeline, so after we were approved by the Transportation Commission with the circle design, we hired a Dura to create the final design for the circles in the fall of 2020. But as they completed the 60% designs for the circles, we halted the project due to the citizen petition. That is the reason we're here today, and that the original words were, City Council directs staff to continue working with residents to develop an expanded system of traffic calming features in Boulder Point. And so this petition came 5 months after the circles had been approved, and that's why we were already into the design phase, but we wanted to make sure the public had an opportunity to come forward with any additional issues. So we brought this back to the Transportation Commission in February of 2023 to review the 60% plans. We emailed all the interested parties in the neighborhood and had them come and talk. And after hearing the public comments and looking at the designs, the commission did recommend us to continue with the proposed plans. And actually, I did invite Kate Morley, who was the chair of the commission, to kind of speak on why we approved that. Hi, Kate. I don't know, Kate, if you'd like to say a few words about that approval process.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Kate Morley. I serve as the chair of your Transportation Commission. And as David just mentioned, he asked me to come today and speak a little bit about commission discussion on this topic. It has come before the commission many times, as you now know, based on his presentation. I'd like to say the commission takes the speeding concerns very seriously in the neighborhood and wants to address them with the neighborhood. We see that consistently with all the neighborhood speeding complaints that we get, and we've historically very much relied on the scoring criteria that was referenced here. And what the commission really decided is the temporary traffic calming features did bring that speeding level down, or the points level down, to where it seems like it's going to work to bring it back within the acceptable range. Additionally, those were, temporary features that were installed pretty quickly. We believe that with the final design by our Dura, that the speeding concerns will be reduced even more with the additional improvements that are being put in there. So the commission really wanted to emphasize to the neighborhood that we're committed to working with them on resolving their neighborhood complaints, but we believe this is step one. Let's get these, they're 60% designed, let's move forward, let's get them installed. And if there's still speeding issues, then we could take additional steps at that time and kind of take an incremental approach rather than halting all the work that's been done to date. So I'm happy to answer any questions if council has any.
Any questions, staff? Council, for staff? Or Traffic Commission Chair? All right.
And sorry, Madam Mayor, thank you. I do have one more slide to go. Is it all right if I finish up?
Of course, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. Really appreciate that. And so, yeah, like Kate said, and this is standard for all the traffic calming projects we do, we always go back and retest them to verify that they are slowing down traffic. And if we do test it and it seems that they're not working, we felt that then would be an appropriate time to add on to this project, but we feel like we should go forward with what we already have. And so that brings us to our recommendation. Staff and the Transportation Commission believe the proposed traffic calming features address the ongoing issues in Boulder Point. And we have already hired and paid a Dura to develop the 60% plans. The circles have been proven to slow vehicles, and the addition of curb extensions and the other elements of the final design will only improve the effectiveness. So both staff and the Transportation Commission recommend continuing with the proposed traffic calming features to 100% design and construction. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
So if this doesn't work, what other options are there?
That
I
is
mean, is there something else?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Harris? Yes. Yes, there are other things we could do if in the event after we put the circle and the curb and sections in to calm traffic. We have a whole toolbox in our residential traffic management guide that we could pull from, which it would be some element of either horizontal deflection, like the curb extensions where the vehicles can't travel in a straight line, potentially vertical deflection, like I say this tentatively, like speed humps, like we've been hesitant to put those on University just because of how many vehicles use it and the size and the noise issues with speed humps and the snow plowing issues. We've had a lot of obstacles with those, but yeah, there are options we could do if there continues to be speeding after the design is installed.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. I've driven down that road, and the first thought that came to mind when I was going around we call them K-rails, is I would mow down a bicyclist because you have to go in the bike lane to go around them. So I'm glad we're moving forward. And also, I just wanted to point out, if it sounds like you guys have done a great job in due diligence of reaching out to the community, trying to find solutions, being very transparent and stuff. And you've put in a lot of money to get this far. So it sounds like that's the track to continue to go on, is to finish this, and if we have to add some other elements to it down the line. But I think just moving past what we have right now, because that seems very dangerous. It's slowing down traffic, but it's dangerous to bicyclists and pedestrians. I think it's a good idea to move forward.
Thank you.
Councilmember McCarthy.
To pick up on what Ms. Matthews said, we're trading two things off. One is reducing the speed of the cars, and the other is safety of bicyclists. Under the current design, the bicyclist is forced to pull out in front of the cars or stop and wait for the cars to pass or get onto the sidewalk. And there's a lot of pedestrians. People walk their dogs and all. So this is very unsafe for bicyclists. Even with these, I live in this area, and even with the temporaries, I've had a lot of occasions where I was going along at 25 miles an hour. Okay, 27, sorry. Anyway, whatever I was going along at, I had to literally like slow down to 5 miles an hour to avoid killing a bicyclist. And I was willing to do that, but it's definitely a safety issue that's being created. We're saying to slow the cars down. We're willing to sacrifice bicycle safety. So I'll leave it at that. And you didn't really show any drawings of it, but apparently you're going to do some curb outs in the curve area of University where it goes, if you're going from town out, where it goes from the west and it curves around to the south. And if you've driven that lately, the right lane is down to about 2 feet, and I'm not exaggerating, because the rest of the street is literally full of hard packed snow. And so it would be interesting to see what you're doing there, and then at Fresh Air, I'd be very curious to know what you're planning to do at Fresh Air and University. I think we have talked about what you're going to do at Axe Handle, which is, it's not like a speed bump. It goes up gradually and then goes down. And also the curbs will be brought in too, which we haven't seen pictures of that. So my main point is you're trading off vehicle speed for bicycle safety. Maybe people think that's a good trade-off. I don't know.
I'm sure you'll want to address that. Do you want to go back to the design and point out how that circle works and how with the bikes?
Mayor and council, if I may, and I don't normally do this, but I would recommend we move into executive session briefly.
All right, we are adjourned into,
We still need a motion in this.
I
Can I
move
have
to
a-
go into executive session.
thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you. We are reconvening our work session and continuing our discussion. So please, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So to address some of the safety concerns brought up, I would first, thank you, Madam Mayor, my apologies, and council members. To address the safety concerns that were brought up, I'd first like to just talk about the characteristic of University. As you enter the neighborhood, the bike lane actually ends a little bit past the edge of this picture. And there's actually a sign that says bike lane ends and bikes may take the full lane. So it is expected for bicyclists to take the full lane as they go into this neighborhood, and that's part of the active transportation master plan. Roads of this characteristic, bikes in this setting, bikes are supposed to take the full lane. And that has been one challenge of this project, is that there has bbeen confusion about where the bike lanes end and where the parking lanes stop. And part of that is just as you enter the neighborhood, doesn't really seem to be a clear transition, but as you enter the neighborhood, they do stop just before this picture, and as you exit, they stop, I believe, or they start at Majestic. It turns into a bike lane once you get past Majestic. So first off, vehicles should be sharing the lane with the vehicles, and we believe that with the final design, the way this will work is that we wouldn't try to keep the bicyclists in the parking or / bike lane. We'd expect them to take the lane, and hence the sharrows. And with the slower speeds, we believe this would be a safer environment for the bikes. This is similar to Plaza Vieja. They have circles of this similar character, and we haven't had any reports of serious bicycle incidents in that neighborhood since they've been installed. And the curbs are also mountable. They'll be rolled curbs, so if a bicycle feels uncomfortable, they would be able to mount the curb and maybe use the sidewalk if they wanted to. We do discourage using the sidewalks because of driveways and other issues, but we don't feel that we're trading bicyclist safety for slower speeds. In fact, we feel that we're enhancing both, or lowering speeds, but also providing better direction for bicyclists as they navigate this neighborhood.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say that the idea of rolled curbs there, very good idea.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Matthews.
On this design, thank you, Mayor. On this design, is part of the current curb on the intersection, are you taking that back some to widen that area?
No, the existing width, like asphalt to asphalt, would remain the same.
So where the curb bump outs are, the bike lane ends quite a ways before that, is that correct?
Correct. So at this picture, looking at Tamba, the bike lane has already ended as you're heading west into the neighborhood. This is parking on the north side. Like this would be considered a parking lane. That's a parking lane. As you exit the neighborhood at Tamba, this is actually a bike lane, but we still feel comfortable having the bikes share the full lane with the vehicles.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions from council members? Yes, Councilmember McCarthy.
So these narrowing of the streets, how is that done? Is that done with paint, or is there like a 4-inch curb, or what's done there?
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. It would be narrowed by these curb extensions. So this, kind of where the edge of my cursor is, would be the edge of the rolled curb on both sides. So vehicles would have to stay in the lane the whole time. They wouldn't be able to hug the sidewalk as they go through the circles, which has been behavior we've seen to try to make their trip as fast as possible. Vehicles have been hugging the curb, so we're going to use the curb extensions to prevent that.
So in the area between this restriction and the old curb, Will that be pavement or like concrete, probably?
Correct.
So a bicyclist could go up the rolled curve, go across the concrete, and then back down, and then get to the right side of the street, whatever we call it.
If they wanted to, we would prefer them to share the lane, but if they felt uncomfortable, they could mount the curbs that way. That was our intention. And that was part of the issue with the temporary design. We couldn't design that in a temporary fashion. And so, which was frustrating on our end, because we knew that, like, oh, there's issues with this. We can't have these bump outs on this side, and it's not as effective. But that's why we're very excited about the final design, because we'll finally be able to do all the things we weren't able to do in a temporary fashion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? I do have a couple of public comments. You sure? Okay. So we have one online, I believe, or no longer. We have one in person. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Staff and the Transportation Commission have worked on speeding on University, but this is not an appeal of the traffic circles, nor am I here asking that you halt work. I'm here to talk about cut-through traffic in Boulder Point. Everyone thought cut-through traffic was a potential problem. 20 years ago, the developer and the city agreed to preemptive strategies meant to discourage cut-through traffic. That's in the development agreement, and traffic engineers estimated cut-through volumes based on those conditions. Everyone also recognizes it could still become a problem, so they developed reactive provisions to mitigate the issue. Those promises are also in the agreement. Those preemptive strategies never happened. Cut-through traffic exploded, and I'm here asking the council to direct staff to fulfill those mitigation promises from 2 decades ago. Staff has said cut-through traffic is not a problem. That's a value judgment, which is okay, but owners disagree. As I said earlier, some people have thought the jump in traffic was only 10%, but the data shows an increase of 54% on University, almost 350% near Fresh Air, and 900% on Axe Handle. And streetlight data presented by staff confirms that 98.5% of that increase is cut-through traffic. We need accurate facts to have a fair discussion. I've been asking for help for years. Maybe they're getting tired of me or it's just a coincidence, but recently staff proposed and the commission approved removing cut-through traffic as an issue addressed with its updated residential traffic management program. Whatever the reason, it doesn't feel good to be repeatedly thrown into a basket labeled "we don't care." The city explicitly promised to address cut-through traffic. Staff has redefined the issue by first telling us it doesn't exist, then explaining that the traffic is too slow to warrant mitigation, but even that review still didn't consider cut-through traffic. Now they're saying even if it does exist, we won't address it. You can't solve a problem if you don't acknowledge it exists, or if you redefine your priorities to ignore the issue. Council has shown great deference to their Presidio promise to open the gate. I don't want us to be victims of selective recall and be ignored. I'm asking the council to also honor its promises to Boulder Point, to follow the plain language in the agreement and direct staff to continue working with residents and develop a system of calming features to mitigate cut-through traffic in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. And our online commenter?
Mayor and Council, I have Jenna H. Jenna, you may go ahead and address Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Jenna Hagee, and I live in the Boulder Point townhomes, and I just wanted to make a comment. I don't know if it's to the city staff that was commenting on the traffic circles, but the one that is on Majestic is a huge liability, especially with now the snow plowing. I've seen cars coming in the opposite direction going north on the wrong side of the street when I'm walking my dogs in the morning. and they don't slow down, they're bypassing the traffic circle. So I was just wondering if if it's gonna be permanent or if they're gonna fix the one on Majestic. The one on Tamba is fine, but the one on Majestic, as you are coming around, if you're on University waiting to turn left onto Majestic, it's a huge mess and cars are coming in and out, not going around the right way and whatnot.
Okay, thank you. And I will ask both of these questions of staff. Jenna, was that your only question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So could you address both the mitigation that you also kind of touched on earlier in your slides, as well as the safety that was just mentioned around the roundabout?
Certainly. Madam Mayor, thank you. Council members. So for the first question from Mr. Wilson regarding the cut-through issues with traffic, I believe that's related to the Woody Way gate being opened after Presidio was completed up to 90%. Part of the development agreement was to open that gate and allow traffic through. And I believe council has visited this a few times, and they decided ultimately to leave it open. As far as addressing cut-through an alternative means, I would have to talk with the transportation team at large, just kind of see what our options would be.
The mitigation efforts that you point out in one of your previous slides, have those already been created, or is this a to come?
These are to come, except for the radar feedback signs. Those are already installed permanently, but the traffic circles are in a temporary fashion. The pedestrian crossing is to come. It hasn't been even installed temporarily, nor have the raised crosswalks.
And that pedestrian crossing, is that to get to the little park?
Correct. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you. And then the question about cars going on the other side of the traffic
circle.
circles.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So we've heard that issue before, and we are working our best to address it. I believe the issue would be, instead of vehicles, if they're trying to take a left, I know this is for Tamba, but at Majestic, if they're trying to make less than the Tamba, instead of going around the circle correctly, they are cutting in front of the circle. And we do design these circles to make that movement possible, because some large trucks can't actually go around the circle the way it's intended. And we have been experimenting with pavement markings in Plaza Vieja, because they had a similar issue with vehicles crossing in front of the circle. And we have found that these pavement markings of carrots or triangles before the circles do help encourage people to go around in the correct way. And that's what we plan to do in the final design, to encourage people not to cut around the circles. And we're also confident that the extensions will slow vehicles down even more as they approach, so you won't have those high approach speeds as they're going into the intersection.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews and then Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask you again, because I wasn't really clear, where is the cut-through traffic coming from? Is that from the new development, or?
So we did do a study, and we did find that there is a percentage of Presidio trips. Presidio, for context, on this screen is this neighboring neighborhood. And the Woody Way Gate used to exist right there between those two neighborhoods. And originally it was closed to prevent large equipment vehicles from entering Presidio as they were constructing the neighborhood. But once it reached 90% construction, or 90% built out, they opened the gate and allowed Presidio to enter Boulder Point. I believe as part of the regional plan, a big part of that is connectivity between neighborhoods. So in order to uphold the regional plan, council decided to keep that connection open. And so there are more trips coming from Presidio into Boulder Point now that it's open. I can't remember off the top of my head the exact quantities, but I could look that up and get it to you later. Thank you.
Councilmember McCarthy.
I think I can talk to the people cutting in front of, instead of going around the roundabout at Majestic. I think the reason is that it seems that the temporary roundabout is located not in the middle of the intersection, it's located to the west. So I presume that when we do the permanent circle, it'll probably be centered on Majestic, and people will be less inclined to cut the corner and go on the left side instead of around the right side. Does that make sense?
Thank you, council member. That is something we're trying to balance with still allowing like large vehicles like snow plows and fire trucks to maneuver in front of the circles while also trying to make that as centered as possible. So there will be a balance of those two priorities of allowing the large vehicles to make a left, but also discouraging other vehicles from cutting in front of the circles. So I'd have to talk with the designer to get a more clear answer on that one, but it will be a balance of those two objectives.
Thank you. Councilmember Sweet, did you want to?
Thank you. So I go out to Boulder Point quite often, maybe not as much as Mr. McCarthy because he lives out there, but I can kind of vouch saying that I feel the mitigation efforts so far have been working. I see cars going slower, and with the bump outs with the sidewalks and the mitigation efforts for bikes and pedestrians, I feel very comfortable saying that continuing with the proposed plan, I support that. And I also, with Mayor, we went out and talked with Jeff months ago, and he kind of showed us around, and I feel with everything that's lined out in this plan, it looks good, and I feel good with supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Aslan, Vice Mayor Aslan.
Thank you. So I appreciate all the extra mitigations that are going into this. And I'm glad this was brought forward by the public, and I'm glad that council took it up for further discussion. Since I've been on council, from the beginning of this debate, I've been strongly on the record as wanting that gate at between Presidio and Boulder Point closed up again. And I remain of that opinion and just want to state it on the record.
Thank you. Councilmember McCarthy.
I think that decision was made by council a long time ago, before I was on council. I distinctly remember standing at the podium there, and there was a council member whose name was Scott Overton, and he specifically asked me, should that stay open? And I says, after construction, it should stay open for neighborhood conductivity. And to sit in the council at that point, again, long before I was on council, made a decision that that would open after construction. So I think, you know, a lot of people buy houses both in Boulder Point and in Presidio knowing that that was true. And the other point I'll make is there's cut through in the opposite direction. For instance, when I go to a meeting at the maintenance yard, I cut through a Presidio, because if I don't, I have to go east and then north and then go over. And my wife worked at Gore on the other side of the freeway, so she could drive through Presidio, probably save about, I would guess, what, 2 miles, mile and a half or something like that. So this, allowing that gate to be open was decided by council already, and secondly, it cuts down on miles traveled. Because if we close it, people are forced to drive way around and cause more air pollution, waste more gas, waste more time.
Thank you, Councilmember. So is there any opposition to giving staff the go-ahead to continue to 100% design plans and complete the construction? Everyone's in agreement? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we are down to item number 11. This is exciting. An update on the care unit.
All righty. Hello and good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, and thank you for the time. We're going to be here to discuss and review our annual report for the care unit. I'm Mike Feltz, Captain Paramedic with the Flagstaff Fire Department. My role as a captain on the engine changed when I was asked to assist with the start of the care unit. I've been here in charge of the unit from the very beginning in the development of the program, the daily operations of the unit, and to manage the program basically to the success that we're going to share with you guys today. I'm going to give you to Brian.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Guest. I'm the Director of Northern Arizona Crisis Services for Teros Health. I'm also a licensed professional counselor. Teros Health, just to give a little background, is a nonprofit behavioral health organization that's served Arizona for over 50 years. And around 7 years ago, we expanded to provide mobile crisis services to Flagstaff and surrounding areas through the state crisis line. And then we have been thrilled to be a partner with the city in this project, the care unit.
So basically, we're here to present our findings from our very first year of operation for the City of Flagstaff's new alternative response unit. We wanted to take your time to kind of give you an overview, basically of the history of how the care unit came about, the reasons why the unit was initiated. We want to share the positive benefits that we've had experienced over the year, and basically the overall summary of the unit's success. You guys should have been provided with a brochure that was included with this presentation that has access to more in-depth information that we're going to share with you today. If you do not have access to that, let me know and I'll make sure that it's provided to you. So to start, first, the conception of the care unit was initiated by the council over a year ago. The purpose of this unit was to provide an alternative response model that could better serve our mental health clients, provide resources to our community's unsheltered population, and to have the resources to handle our lower acuity 911 calls, basically thus freeing up our emergency services to respond to true emergencies. The bid for service went out, and the relationship between Teros and the City of Flagstaff started with a 3-year contract with a possibility of a 2-year up. The care unit started on March 28th of 2022, and it has been in operation from 0900 hours to 1900 hours, and we've responded 7 days a week. The unit right now is operated by a Teros crisis clinician along with the Flagstaff Fire Department EMT. They're active within the community using both of their skill sets to provide community stabilization throughout the city. They do this by being active in the community, doing proactive outreach to community members, and also responding to 911 calls through a modified dispatch model called an Omega response. So this is our calls for service. So the care unit handled 1,038 calls from March 28th to January 31st. We still have data that we'll be collecting that we can provide for the remaining months. I wanted to remind you that the previous system prior to care would have commonly sent a complement of a police unit, a fire truck, and an ambulance with a normal response of lights and sirens throughout the city. The unit has made our city safer by decreasing lights and siren response, by police, fire, and ambulance, and also keeping them more available for emergent calls. And we've done that 1,038 times. Our current emergency response system has paramedics who are governed by a medical doctor with protocols, limiting end outcomes for subjects needing care with the outcome normally being that of the hospital. We have found that the emergency department is not always the best option. In fact, we kept 983 individuals away from the emergency department and provided them with an alternative means of care that's better suited to the individual's needs. This means the treatment may be as simple as Gatorade, water, or basically just someone to talk to. With that, we created more bed space in the emergency department, less impact on individuals, and less opportunity for police interaction. The unit has done approximately 1,100 proactive outreach calls, providing resources through individuals throughout the city and community, creating a betterment for individuals and thus another reduction in 911 calls. There's a statistic that follows the care unit. Basically, if you can provide an individual with a need, it reduces a 911 call for up to 72 hours. We've really experienced this throughout our last year. There's a very interesting flow of calls that we've had, and we feel like we're stabilizing the community. So what happens is the care unit is extremely busy for 2 to 3 days, and then the city goes silent for up to 3 to 5, and we just kind of have this even flow. On the silent days, we feel like the community is stabilized and an overwhelming feeling that the unit is working.
All right, so the map you see in front of you is a map of all of the care unit responses since we went live. Minus, there's a few at the bottom of the map that we couldn't fit on the screen, but the high density areas are all shown here. So what this map shows is the most common response areas, the high density response areas for the care unit. And that's the yellow and red areas there. And then the circles represent individual responses, with the larger circles being multiple responses over time to the same address. So we can see from the map here that the majority of our responses follow the high traffic thoroughfares of Flagstaff, in particular Route 66, Milton, and other areas. We also see a high number there in downtown Flagstaff, as well as some areas of Sunnyside. And then generally we see high response volume at grocery store shopping centers, as well as public parks.
Can I just add, one of the most important takeaways off of this map is that you can see the calls are spread completely across the city, and that's providing service with one unit.
All right, so this data up here is provided by the Flagstaff Police Department, and this is data that has been shown publicly and in city council meetings prior to the care unit existing, and part of showing that was to show the need of in the community for behavioral health, for substance use and mental health support through the 911 system. So this 2019 and 2020 data that you see here has been provided previously, and then we wanted to show 2022 data as well now that the care unit is up and running. Something to note here, it's been well documented and known sort of throughout the country that with the COVID-19 pandemic and everything that's come after that, that there's been significant increases in mental health and substance use issues throughout our country. And I think these numbers reflect that as well. We're seeing increases in 911 responses relating to substance use and mental health issues, both with Flagstaff Police Department and Flagstaff Fire Department. One thing I did want to bring your attention to is the second row from the bottom, that Flagstaff Fire Department man-down responses. That's where we've seen the most significant decreases in 2022 with the care unit, which was a significant aim of the care unit in the first place of creating the care unit, was to create a better response for those man-down calls. And keep in mind, this decrease is with the care unit only responding 10 hours of the day instead of the full 24. Additionally, with the Omega responses that the care unit responds to, those responses aren't utilized during certain adverse weather conditions and particularly low temperatures, just because for safety reasons, the lights and sirens response is still what's best when there's risk for exposure. So that is also causing that number to go even higher than it otherwise would be.
So in 2019, this chart shows the Flagstaff Police Department's arrest 5+ times for an individual who's been arrested 5 or more times. In 2019, there was 140 individuals that accounted for a total of 894 arrests. In 2020, there was 194 individuals that totaled 1,350. In 2022, with the operation of the care unit, so we pulled the data during the hours of the operation of the care unit with 2019 and 2020. So it'd be from 9 in the morning till the 1900 hours. So in 2022, we decreased that to only 47 individuals with 330 arrests. Pretty awesome. So basically our reductions, so with the calls shown on the care, we've been able to reduce the number of arrests and bookings for alcohol-rated offenses. We've shown a 65% decrease in alcohol-related arrests from April to September. The care unit maintained numbers for mental health crisis calls for fire and police with the rise of mental health crisis across the nation, along with reducing repeated interactions with individuals suffering from mental health issues. The data also shows a decrease in man-down responses for the fire department.
When we first went into creating this unit, we knew that reliance on existing community partners in Flagstaff and existing services was going to be crucial because we're providing that immediate response in emergency type situations, but then what? Then what can we do to help this person? And so just as we thought we would, we've relied very heavily on the great partners we have here in the Flagstaff community. First, just want to highlight in particular Flagstaff Shelter Services. They have been more than the most awesome partner we could have hoped for in this. As we're responding to individuals in need in the community who don't have shelter, who don't have a safe place to be, they have been such great partners in allowing us to, not just allowing us to drop off pretty much anyone that wants to go there, but actively coordinating with us. We have a system where we call them ahead of time to let them know that we're dropping somebody off, and they have someone come out and greet us, and it's just been a really awesome system that we've had in place with them. And their policy of allowing us to bring them pretty much anyone who wants to go there has also been crucial. Not all shelters take individuals who are actively intoxicated, but they do, and that's been so huge for us. The Guidance Center as well, they've provided us as well with an alternative place to drop individuals off, particularly those who are sort of actively struggling with a mental health crisis. There's a crisis center drop-off area that we've been able to drop many clients off to, so that's been crucial as well. The Flagstaff Family Food Bank, we're going to go over some statistics a little later about some of the things we've been able to provide to individuals as far as basic needs, but the Flagstaff Family Food Bank has been crucial to that. They've provided us with sandwiches, water, drinks, other snacks to hand out to the people we see. Salvation Army, some other businesses in town have provided us with clothing items and other basic needs to give out to individuals. Mountain Line, NAPTA, they've provided us with all of the bus passes we could want to be able to hand out to individuals who are in need of transportation. NACA, or Native Americans for Community Action, has been a crucial partner as well for coordinating of services, and there's others too that I think I'm forgetting, but we've just been overwhelmed with the support that we've gotten from the community. So speaking of distribution of basic needs, as I've mentioned, most of these things have been provided by the partners we've just talked about, but we've provided over 1,000 sandwiches to individuals in need, approximately 350 bus passes, winter coats, hats, gloves, all sorts of other different clothing items. We've also distributed around 30 vials of Narcan. That's the opiate overdose reversal drug. We also have indigenous ceremonial items like sage, cedar, sweetgrass, and other things that we're able to distribute when appropriate. And we've also created some informational just handouts to be able to give people that have other connections to resources.
So the Omega Dispatch, we thought it was important to have an understanding of what is an Omega Dispatch. A lot of our data points beyond this are based upon the Omega Dispatch. So the Omega Dispatch was basically created through the dispatch process, through the EMD system that does a list of questions. And we have changed the questioning through the dispatch model to make sure that we're sending the right unit. So the Omega Dispatch sends the right unit to the lower acuity incident 911 calls. We know that the Omega Dispatch has been working because when we arrive on scene and the EMT does a full assessment, our medical calls are only activated 15% of the time. So the Omega Dispatch is working exactly how we wanted it to. So this is the care unit response by dispatch. So this is going to be those Omega dispatches that we talked about earlier. So they're primarily done through the dispatch system 76% of the time by a 911 caller. The other utilizations shown are requested by fire, police, or ambulance for assistance from the care unit while on another call. As the units around the city have a better understanding of the services provided from care, they have been utilizing it more, so those percentages have been increasing.
We collect data on what we call primary issue on scene, so what is the most pressing thing that the person that we're responding to has going on at that moment, and that's the data you see before you here. So as you can see, the vast majority of the people that we respond out to are dealing with issues of intoxication or substance use disorders. Again, which is, I think, what the city and what the council had sort of intended for this unit to address. The other biggest chunk there you see is need for resources or services. So these are individuals who maybe don't have an acute substance use or mental health crisis going on in that moment, but they just need connection to a basic need. So a roof over their head, food, water, those kinds of things. We also do respond to some mental health and suicide-related calls to 911, and then a few sort of low acuity medical issues, and then a smattering of other. So this graph you see here shows our average response time. So the overall average, all months combined, response time from when we're dispatched to when we get on scene has been 11 minutes. And you can see from the graph that stays pretty consistent, that average response time from month to month.
How is that calculated? Is that logged by dispatch?
Sorry, what was that?
How do you calculate that number?
So we record the time that we're dispatched, and then by 911 dispatch, and then the time we arrive on scene. We also put, just for each month, our maximum response time, so the single instance each month that it took us the longest to get on scene. That's what you see in the red bars there. And I think that just underscores that while we have a very low average response time, there are still things that come up that cause us, on rare occasions, to take a little longer. Part of that is because we are not a lights and sirens response, so we travel through traffic just like everybody else. We deal with the weather conditions just like everybody else as well. But again, these are situations that have already been deemed not in need of emergent medical or safety kind of response. So those response times, while we'd always want to get them lower, we're not taking that long to get to people that are in need of some sort of emergent medical attention. We also track outcomes. So in other words, what happens with the person we're seeing when we're done working with them. So there's a wide variety of outcomes that can happen. The single largest one, as you can see here, is what we categorize as left in the care of themselves or a support person. So that's any scenario where we were able to come to where the person is, provide them with some resource, or just provide them with someone to listen and de-escalate the situation, or to leave them in the care of a supportive friend, family member, etc. This category also included scenarios where we transported somebody to like their own home or the home of a support member. Shelter drop-off, so I talked before about how thankful we are for Flagstaff shelter services. About 20% of the clients we see, we do end up dropping off to a shelter. And then medical, Captain Feltz spoke earlier about that 15% of the individuals we do go out and see, the care unit decides to escalate it to a full emergency medical response. Important to note, though, here that prior to the care unit, that 15% would pretty much be 100% of these types of calls would be a lights and sirens medical response, with the individual being taken to Flagstaff Medical Center. One thing that we're very proud of that I did also want to point out is that 1% law enforcement, and that's been something we've presented before at city council meetings as we've gone along, that very rarely does the care unit ask for law enforcement to join them to help sort of de-escalate a major safety situation. And so that's something we're just very proud of and excited about. There has been concern, or had been early on, that maybe this wasn't a safe scenario to be putting a mental health person into an unarmed fire EMT, but we've shown that that actually that's not the case, that we don't need that law enforcement intervention. The last one I just want to note on there, because it is a big chunk, is that light blue, the canceled calls. So that is a variety of scenarios where we're not able to engage with the person. Sometimes that's because we're called off before we get on scene. Some other solution or disposition was reached. Other times we get on scene, but we're not able to locate the person, or other times the person just doesn't want to engage with us. So. I guess that's still me, huh? So we're throwing a lot of data at you all, which I think is important, but we also wanted to take a little time to talk about some specific stories, success stories that demonstrate what the care unit can do for this community. So I want to have our Taros clinical manager for the care unit. Oh, look, she's already ready. Siren Rose Lipschutz is our clinical manager, and she oversees the care unit, and she wanted to share a few stories with you.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. It's awesome to be here, and I can't believe it's been almost a year. As Brian said, numbers are really important, and they show an overall picture of what the care team has been doing. However, we know there's value in seeing some of the more human-level day-to-day experiences and successes of the care team. To start with, I think we couldn't be more proud of the staff that we have. every single one of them has been with us from day one and really have what it takes to do this work. And it can be really hard, as I'm sure you can imagine. They provide trauma-informed, person-centered, culturally humble services to people of a demographic that have largely been ignored and historically do not receive enough attention. So having people on our team who care as much as they do, of course they care, we're the care team, right? I always catch myself in that. But they do, they care so much, and the passion is amazing, and it's wonderful to have them on our team. The relationship between the Flagstaff fire EMTs and our crisis clinicians who come from very different worlds is getting stronger and closer, and it's really fun to see these relationships being built. Both sides of our teams bring their own skill set and their own training to the team. Our clinician, Marge, who is peer support certified and is a substance abuse counselor, is somebody who provides one of these specific responses on a daily basis. And part of that is because she also speaks Navajo. I can't overstate how important this has been for the response that we're providing in the community. And we often look for large-scale differences, but doing the work day to day, we see the incremental, small-scale differences. And one of those is just being thanked for what we're doing. Having somebody who speaks Navajo has opened up communication with community members that I don't think would otherwise be open. And when she breaks into Navajo with a client and we see them suddenly feel comfortable and open up, we just realize what a great asset having a team member like that is. And you know, one of the specific examples is literally being thanked for being treated like a human being after having felt invisible. Those are the cliche outcomes that we're looking for, but we're really hearing those stories. Our EMTs are also amazing. Just recently in this cold, as we know, it got cold sooner and it got colder than normal. We've seen our EMTs really being diligent in their proactive outreach and going out and locating people who are close to the shelter or who could go to the shelter and are sort of about to miss that opportunity. And one of our EMTs recently just stopped by the shelter and saw all the people on the sidewalks around the shelter and encouraged them to go in, and got a lot of them to go into the shelter to seek shelter. And unfortunately, I believe that was on a night where we lost somebody. And so just knowing that we have been part of that, we have been part of getting people shelter, is powerful. And and we want to do more, and we want to keep doing these. And another really cool example of exactly that was, a heart-wrenching story that I've been trying to, think about how to share in this setting. The care team, it was about half an hour before the team was going down for the night, and they were just driving down the street when an EMT saw what he thought might be a person, but wasn't sure. And of course, it was getting dark. They pulled over, and there was a man who was slumped over an electrical box and covered in about 4 to 6 inches of snow. The EMT tried to see if he was conscious, if, God forbid, to see if he was alive, and was finally able to rouse him, and he was literally stuck to this electrical box under snow. And by picking him up and taking him and getting him medical care, we're pretty sure that was a life saved. And is a story that will be with us forever. We can call it a success, but you know, it's saving a life, which is the most important thing. The one other thing I wanted to share is as you saw, we see a lot of people who are intoxicated, a lot of people with substance use issues, but that's not the only demographic that we work with. We also see people who just need help of some kind. We were recently called by the fire department. We were called to somebody that the fire department had seen who was living out in the woods in freezing conditions without enough warmth. And the police had been called on him and the fire department had been called on him, and what was missing was connections to resources. And so we were able to get him into town. He wanted to go somewhere other than Flag Shelter, so we took him to the Mission, and he integrated really well there and was able to then engage in some of the social services that he needs. There are so many of these examples within these numbers, right? The human element is what has kept our staff with us this long, and is what makes it feel like the work is so meaningful. And the numbers round out that picture. So thanks for hearing our stories.
Thank you.
So basically, again, just want to reiterate, those are just very, very small examples of some of the things that we've done on like a community impact. We could be here all night and tell you we have countless lives saved at this point with examples that we've done. It's been pretty amazing to be a part of. So we wanted to share kind of some of the lessons that we've learned. One of the lessons that we've learned to take away is we needed direct management over care for fire. I was on a fire engine as a captain at Station 2 and was pulled off to oversee the unit. As we've gone through putting the unit into place, we've really understood the importance of having a supervisor over care on the fire side to make sure that we're progressing forward. We've also had challenges with data collection. We really didn't understand how hard it was going to be able to pull the data from so many different areas. So in the future, we're going to be looking for ways that we can integrate data between Taros, Flagstaff Fire Department, Dispatch, Flagstaff Police Department, so that we can have a better data set to present up on our next annual. The staffing for EMT, so let me make sure I get this right. So council set aside funds last year for a peer specialist. At this time, there's no recommendations for any change in staffing other than looking to have a city-dedicated program manager. So dispatch model to hold the unit to its contractual needs. So as we're building the unit and we're growing, more people are hearing about our services. And what we're starting to find out is there's so many avenues that we can go to be involved within the community. We want to be pulled to assist with the hospital. We want to be pulled in this direction. We want to be pulled here. So we're really having to make sure that we hold our dispatch models correctly to make sure that we're withholding our contractual needs as we had set this up at the very beginning. Facilities for care. So we're running out of room for facilities. Currently, the only fire station that houses care that has the room for it is Station 6. As we continue to grow, Station 6 might not be an option for care anymore. So in the near future, we're going to have to look at other options on what that looks like. So basically, in conclusion, the unit's basically doing what we had intended it to do. we've reduced the numbers of arrests and bookings for alcohol-related offenses. We've reduced the number of transports to the emergency department for intoxication or detox issues. We provided a correct tool for a mental health crisis. We provided a tool for community stabilization through individual needs. We've made all risk units more available for emergencies by dispatching the correct unit to the lower acuity calls. And most importantly, we're providing a better service all around to our community. So things to come. So we're actually getting our care unit van that we ordered a long time ago. It's been back ordered and we've had challenges after challenges. And I actually got the phone call yesterday that it's done. So we just have to go pick it up, put our decals on it, and it'll finally be in service. So these are pictures of it up here. This is a 40 transit van. As you can see, it has seating on the inside that we can still transport individuals for their needs. And then the back is set up to be able to provide resources. So it has a cooler, a big box for hats, gloves, clothing, blankets, whatever we need in there, and then drawers for food and snacks and kind of whatever we can hand out. So we'd like to open it up for questions.
Wonderful, thank you. Councilmember Matthews, then Councilmember House, and then, okay, let's go.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, the hours of operation are from 9 to 7, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So is there a peak time? Like, it seems that you would be more in need later in the evening. So why did you choose 9 to 7 instead of like noon to, closer to midnight?
You want me to answer that? Sure. So we chose 9 to 7 as our initial push, just to be able to get the data for when those calls happened. On the graphs, we show that our peak times are between 1 and 3 o'clock. We looked at our data and compared data to see how many calls we were missing throughout the night, and it wasn't very many. So we feel that our hours of operation from 9 to 7 are still hitting the critical times. There's also a feeling on the fire department when we're eating dinner, the calls go down, and we don't run as many calls at that time, just kind of showing that there is a drop off around that 7 o'clock mark, and our data shows that. We just didn't put it in here. I think it's included in your brochure that we made for you.
And then there was a slide in the very beginning with a lot of little dots all over your area. Can you find that really quick?
I sure can.
And while you're looking at that, I know that Catholic Charities used to have or still has a response team that goes out and responds to, they go searching for people in need and bring them supplies. Is that an overlap or just, we never run out of needs for that, but how is that adjust?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think you're referring to the PATH program. Yeah, and we do coordinate with them. We've had some meetings with them and coordination. The great thing is with that outreach that you're referring to, they tend to do that later in the night, which is kind of a good supplement to the work we're doing, because it kind of catches those later hours that are beyond when we close up at 7 p.m. And sometimes we'll also coordinate with them if we've interacted with someone who maybe didn't want to come with us, but it's a cold night, we're concerned, what's going to happen later tonight. We can coordinate with the PATH program so that they can sort of be on the lookout for that person later on.
And then my last question regarding this screen, that big purple, blue 40. So that's around the shelter, correct? So it looks like there's a lot of calls that go there. Can you just describe that a little bit more? Is that people that started to go there and couldn't make it there? Because I know that is an issue. I've experienced that. Or what's the criteria with that?
Yeah, so it's variable all the way across the board. Mostly what we find is just people in need of resources. So when we actually transport somebody to the Flagstaff Shelter Services, as Brian mentioned earlier, we create a warm handoff where they have resources when we can get there. We can provide all the way around to wraparound housing. We can get counseling. We can get the guidance center involved. There's a lot of resources there. But in and around the shelter are a lot of individuals that just need resources. Either it's a housing, it can be water, food, any gloves, things like that. So that being a large area where our unsheltered population is, we have a large call volume so that we can actually hit our unsheltered population and provide whatever needs we can. Hopefully that makes sense.
Because the shelter provides that, but you're saying these people just don't want to go into the shelter?
So the shelter, it does shut down at certain times, and we can offset those times. So I don't know directly what times it opens up, but they're not open throughout the day to be able to let individuals in.
Right.
So we can provide those needs while they're closed.
And lastly, I just want to comment on your response time. I want to know your route because I cannot go anywhere in 11 minutes in town with the traffic. So I'm going to just follow you and see what side streets you take.
I also wanted to comment too on your very first question. So when the care unit goes down at night, we still have our normal resources around the city. So we have all of Flagstaff Police Department that's roaming the cities. We also have fire department that's roaming. We also have the ambulance that's running. And the Omega dispatch doesn't go away. So if a community member calls, we still use the same Omega dispatch model, and we'll just send out a fire engine in place of a police, fire, and ambulance. They'll assess the situation, see if we can come up with that individual's needs on the engine, and then if needed, then they can upgrade and we'll have an ambulance come and transport to the hospital. So it's just a little more limiting because we have to abide by our medical control as a paramedic on the unit is. Yes.
Chief, did you have something to add?
I just wanted to comment on Councilmember Matthews' question about Catholic Charities. Really good point. Met with them week before last, and we are pursuing meetings with them as well as the entire nonprofit NGO community out there that all has some role to play. In the beginning, there was a great deal of presence of that entire community as the city was standing up this program, and a lot of concerns about our intentions and how we intended to go about putting this service on the street. And now it's apparent to us, and particularly our conversation with Catholic Charities, is to bring that community back, provide this information to them, and make sure if there are opportunities for us to create connections that we formalize those connections and roll them into the plan. We have a very small niche of what our response provides, but we're getting better and better at making those connections in the community. So that conversation is going on. We'll have that with the nonprofit NGO community, and we'll begin to improve those relationships very much similarly as what you've seen the report with Flagstaff Shelter Services. Unbelievable how important they've been to the success of the program to date, and there are more out there like that. We want to identify them and make sure we're hooked up.
Could I just make one more comment too to your comment, Councilmember Matthews, about the 11-minute response time? In all seriousness, I think part of that also is because of the proactive outreach aspect. The care unit isn't just sitting at the fire station waiting to be dispatched. We're moving around the community, and in particular, hitting these same hot spots that we know many of our responses are to, and so we're sort of already out there when the dispatch comes in.
City Manager and then Councilmember Sweet.
Well, thank you, Mayor. This touches on that last topic. If you can advance to that slide that showed the response time. I thought I detected a quick observation when I was looking at that, thank you, chart, and that is this. You guys started a year ago in March, and with one or two small outliers, you can see a trajectory here of reduced response time through the course of the past 11 months is pretty discernible, and that leads me to assume anyway that you're learning where to be and you're learning how to get there, and there are efficiencies that are coming about as we would all expect to occur over time. So just wanted to share that observation. Thanks.
Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember House was actually before me, so I want to offer her the opportunity.
Councilmember House, sorry about that.
That's all right, Mayor, thank you. So I have a comment that I'd like to make, but before that, just a question. In the data that you showed, it went from 2019, then 2020, and then 2022. I just wanted to know why the gap on 2021.
I can answer that for you. So when we put the data together, number one, we wanted to make sure that you could see the data set from when the care unit was conceptualized to what we're looking at now, so that you can see the difference of what it looked like then and then what it looked like now. And then the 2021 data is missing because of COVID. The numbers were just all over the place and it didn't make sense. So it was easier to show what we had before when we wanted to make care unit as to what we look like now with the same numbers across the board.
Okay, thank you. I kind of assumed that, but just wanted to check on that.
Yes.
Beyond that, I just wanted to make the comment and just say thank you for what you're doing. This is such an important service for our community. And for me personally, this is a major topic that means a lot to me. In terms of just the focus that you're providing on mental and behavioral health care, which has been just a gap for our community in some of the resources that exist. I know that there are different programs that touch into it and provide resources, but to be able to meaningfully meet folks in that moment and connect them to the resources that they need rather than them becoming necessarily justice impacted or just missing the ability to access those things is so important. And so I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for bringing this and seeing it grow and continue to increase those levels of service is just very meaningful. So thanks.
Now, Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you. I'll start off with some comments. I wanted to thank everyone that put their heart into this, including the previous council and staff and all of you. It is an amazing attribute to our community, and you are stabilizing the community. That is absolutely correct. I have a business downtown, and I have watched you all in motion several times and seen nothing but care and just what a wonderful thing to be able to witness, and I've had the opportunity to do it. I do have a question with your home at Fire Station 6. Can you tell me why are you running out of room, and how much room do you feel you might need to grow into?
I can answer. You want me to answer that? I can answer that. Okay, so we used to be housed out of Station 3. And as the city grows and there's more demand for fire resources, we put another rescue into play, which then just impacted the area for care to be. So that it brought in 2 to 3 more people within the station, and we just kind of outgrew it. But amazingly, it gave us the opportunity to get data sets to see what a response from the east side of town would look like. So the rest of the stations within the city kind of have the same type of setup with amount of units, amount of people, and just no real space for them to work out of. Station 6 was our next only option, and the reason why we're using Station 6 is there's a current community room on the front of it that we took over. So we've based care out of there. We're able to put computers in, and we run them out of there. Again, as we need more resources within the city and we continuously grow, that room will probably be turned into an office for another operational site of fire at some point.
Did you have something, Vice Mayor?
I do. Always appreciate you guys. Very proud to be on the ground level with this and championing it as it moves along. Thank you so much for these frequent updates. It's a feel-good moment for all of us, and I think we need to see you in front of us as much as possible, especially in the early years while we're trying to stabilize things here. I think you know this, but it's worth repeating for other voices in the room. I am a first responder myself. I spent time on ALS, BLS units with Lifeline Ambulance in Prescott, got my EMT certification. And so, you know, I spoke last week about one of my organizing principles, which is those who aren't close to the problem can afford to philosophize. And for me, at least from the first responder side of this, I'm close to the problem. So when I think about this, it's not just philosophizing. I think the difference you're making in the quality of life, for lack of a better term, for the police department and the fire department is going to accumulate over time into something that's really maybe not tangible, but something that's incredibly valuable in a number of different ways. And of course, there's the other side of things, the positive outcomes that are happening for the community. But there's two sides of that coin, and I just know that over time, the relief and the alleviation of duties and that feeling of I'm not qualified or equipped to handle these kinds of problems is going to permeate through these departments in very positive ways, and I hope we continue to resource this as much as we can. I was going to ask you guys a question about, this is an open-ended question, so feel free to answer it however you want to, or if you feel you've already addressed it, that's fine too. But there's got to be a seasonal aspect to this. You know, severe weather events are something we're all getting used to around here right now. And I just want to leave space for you guys to comment. Anything else you left out from earlier, from your specific anecdotes, or any resource concerns or needs, or just some things you've learned along the way about transitioning from one season to another in this work. And then I have another question, which I'd like an answer to at your leisure when you're done answering the first question. I'm very interested in, you guys have a slide up there about what you've learned. Maybe you can go back to that. I'm interested in what other communities are learning from you. As part of this ongoing presentation, I would like frequent updates on who's tapping into you guys, who's hearing about this, who's calling you, who's saying, come out to our community and tell us about what you're doing, teach us what you're doing, help us smooth out our own operation on this. We're on the ground floor of this sort of thing, and I think it would be not only just a great feeling, but very strategic for us to be able to leverage the identity as leaders in this effort nationwide. And how do we become known as that shining example, that model that is being replicated everywhere, and take this and make it into something that's much larger than the sum of its parts here in Flagstaff.
So Vice Mayor Aslan, I think I can answer those for you. So we have a graph here that we can share with you that shows our dispatches per month as we've seen with the care unit. Our highest one being August, our lowest being November, amazingly. So it kind of does an arching thing. The thing that we've been able to do with it is, so we were able to assess if we ran more calls during the wildland fires out east because of access down 89, access down Loop Road, all the roads being closed off. We wanted to know if we would have more of an unsheltered population within the city that we could provide services to. We wanted to know how we could utilize the care unit in the fire, that type of stuff. So that was really great. As we came into the winter months, we were clearly afraid of environmental emergencies, and how do we adjust operations for that? So one thing that we did that we didn't mention in here is we squashed the Omega response if there's inclement weather like we're gonna see tomorrow night or the next night. So we want to make sure that, again, we're sending the right units for the right call. So with there being an increased opportunity for environmental exposures, we send a fire truck and we don't send care. And then if the fire truck assesses and they figure out that we could use care, then they can always call care to provide that person with more resources. So it's been pretty great to see now that we've done it for a full year, but we'll make sure and provide the graph so that you'll have access to it.
With respect to external interest in the programming that we've done, we've had a number of ride-alongs, visitors. Mojave County, Bullhead City area has a similar unsheltered population issue, perhaps, and this has been our experience. Every community is different about what are the factors that kind of contribute to what's going on in the streets, particularly in the unsheltered populations. However, and I belong to a number of networking groups, alternative responses to the traditional fire truck and police officer is a hot button item across the nation right now, particularly with the homelessness issue on a severe escalation. Everyone is looking for options, great deal of interest. Sit in a room full of chief officers and just briefly mention our program, and I'm getting handed a bunch of business cards and phone calls. It's a now issue. We are definitely on the front end of a lot of responses. We were no different. We tried to make this response with our traditional resources, and it didn't work. Now, the right level of medical provider and the right behavioral health, mental health specialist, now we're making a difference, and it's certainly something people are interested in. Brian and Mike have been invited to the International Association of Fire Chiefs National Conference to present our program. I suspect it's because everybody wants to know how they can provide an alternative response. So we're getting visitors, we're getting attention, and a lot of folks are looking for ways to do a better job in their community, just like we are.
Thank you. You know, I sit here, I just suspect there's a great deal of strategic value to branding ourselves and labeling ourselves and positioning ourselves in a leader in all this. And ongoing, I think it would be valuable and interesting to really deliberately think through the ways that we leverage the opportunity that leadership brings with it. I think there's getting the program out there, there's horizontally sharing knowledge, but there are also maybe ways to further leverage funding opportunities, grant awards, and just, you know, there's that intangible element of buzz and, you know, uplift in terms of promotion and zeitgeist and collective consciousness out there about the transition to these other models away from the traditional way we've always done stuff. So thinking strategically and deliberately about the best ways to launch something bigger than the sum of its parts. Just something to keep in mind. I'm not a promotion expert. I'm not an advertiser. Those aren't my strengths, but sitting down with some people who are might yield some great new ideas and resources, that opens new doors that we weren't even thinking about.
Just to add to that, so we've been in contact with Senator Kelly's office. We've had meetings with them to assist in setting up programs within the Verde Valley. And they've offered funding sources for the care unit through Kelly's office once that we had statistical data that showed that we're a proven successful model. So we've been looking into that to figure out how we can best fund the unit, best fund the program to provide the best service that we can to our community. Just on a side note too, we've assisted Bullhead City in setting up their unit. They have a little bit of a different model. Police department is running it versus fire department. And they're actually contracting with fire department EMTs to ride the unit. So we were able to, they shadowed us for a whole day, able to pick their brains or our brains, and we're kind of back and forth to assist them in creating a successful program as well. So we're getting a lot of attention, which is great because it's needed. It's truly a valuable resource that works. And we have found that you can tweak the resource for whatever your community need is. When we had a outbreak of fentanyl, we were able to provide Narcan around the city to reduce that risk of a fentanyl overdose. It's just little things, and it's the best part about having an alternative means of treatment. We can adjust it however we need.
Councilmember McCarthy?
I just wanted to thank the whole team, police, fire, everybody, for what's obviously a very successful program. So thank you for putting your effort and your heart into this.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to echo that. Chief, you said it, sometimes it's hard to break old habits and old ways and to think out of the box. And it's just really refreshing and makes, all of us feel very proud that we were able to embrace this and see such success. And adding that responder that speaks Navajo is just reaches into just a big, deep-rooted issue that we've had for a long time. And so that's just like icing on the cake. So I just really want to commend you guys for just putting that all together and having all the agencies work together. And I look forward to just seeing how this just blossoms and just evolves. So thank you so much to your whole team and fire and PD and everything. Bye.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Are there calls that you aren't able to get to during a shift?
We have not yet. So we're currently operating out of a Taros van, which is a Toyota Sierra. It's all-wheel drive, but it's low profile. So we've just had to be very diligent on plowing. And then, funny story, yesterday, depending on who's driving and who the EMT is, there's a lot of you should gun it and don't take your foot off of the accelerator. And we've been able to make it in. So weather-related stuff, but the new van that we have coming has a higher profile. We have chains ordered for it. So on the winter weather stuff, yes. The response times across the city, like you guys saw up there on the 40-minute response times, there's a large portion of calls that we get there and the individual is not there anymore. We don't feel like that's necessarily an issue because they didn't need a need if they didn't have a need if they didn't stay there for us. And then if there was a need, then 911 would be called again and we could locate them at that point. So, but beyond that, there hasn't been any calls that we haven't been able to make it to.
Wonderful. Yeah, I echo everything that everyone said. This is fantastic, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, well, we are going to take a quick 10-minute break and then come back for the last item, which is our post-wildfire flooding update. All right, so continuing on, item number 12, post-wildfire flooding update.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Ed Shank, Stormwater Manager. We have our pretty typical team here today to give our monthly update on the post-wildfire flooding scene. So here is our agenda, if you will, for this presentation. We'll give some updates for the Schultz Creek area, that's Pipeline West, as well as Spruce Wash updates, a brief mention of the spring flood mitigation planning that was being undergone right now, and then open it up for discussion and questions. Just a little bit of background. You saw the slide, I believe, last month, and just added a little bit of detail to it. Some of this work that we're doing here in Flagstaff is occurring very quickly. It's some of the best work in the nation, and that's not just a slogan. Just as an example, in 2022, the city did receive the Innovate CityWorks Excellent Departmental Practice. That's a nationwide award presented in Salt Lake City for post-fire response and management. There's also been quite a bit of new research that's come out of both the museum and pipeline fire by a number of different researchers, including in the Journal of Geophysical Research, Frontiers in Earth Science, Journal of Forestry, and others. and then multiple workshops and presentations at both the national and international level. And as you well know, in the last 3 years, Flagstaff has been visited by the Chief of the U.S. Forest Service, congressional representation, Army Corps of Engineers leadership, and other high-ranking federal staff and delegations. So what we're showing here today and what we show every month, this really is cutting-edge work that's being noticed on the nationwide level. Again, this overall map of what we are working with, what we're dealing with here in the community, just going to move through it quickly. You're very well aware of this. We have the 2019 museum fire in Dry Lake Hills, which impacts the Grandview and Sunnyside neighborhood within the city, as well as Mount Eldon Estates in the county. We also have the tunnel fire that really impacted the county residents in the Timberline area, Doney Park, Haywire fire as well that was further out in federal lands, and obviously the 2022 pipeline fire that impacted both the city through Stavana, Coconino Estates, Coyote Springs, and downtown Southside, as well as the east side impacts to the county residents. Just give you some updates on the Spruce Wash watershed. Again, some of this you've seen before. So the new hydrology modeling does indicate that we still have an elevated flood risk. Even with some of the watershed recovery, there is still a very large flood risk for that Paradise, Grandview, and Sunnyside neighborhood. Those bond projects at $26 million are moving quickly through design as we speak. And we have that technical advisory committee that continues to meet weekly and focus groups on particular projects that meet as needed. The geotechnical and survey work are being performed as weather allows. Obviously, we have some issue with that, with the amount of snow that we have, but we are doing the best we can. And there has been a construction manager at risk, a CMAR, that has been selected, and that is ongoing in negotiations with staff. We expect that award coming to council soon, so there'll be more information on that shortly. With that, I believe Scott's going to come up and talk a little bit more in detail with the projects.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Scott Overton, Public Works Director. I'm covering for Mac McNamara, one of our capital improvement engineers this evening, who is out ill. We hope him a speedy recovery and back to work soon. As you know, we have gone through the suite of projects with you at our last meeting, and there are a total of 7 of them. And this map and the listing is the projects that our TAC group is continuing to design and work towards delivery from the $26 million of resource post-bond. Real importantly, and I think this was a highlighted slide that is new material that MAC was ready to present this evening. A CMAR, construction manager at risk, that's the model of delivery we're utilizing to deliver all $26 million of the project work, has been selected through a qualifications-based process. We like to highlight this. This isn't always low bid. Remember, this is a different type of process that allows us to work with what we feel is the most and highly competent team that could bring the best vision and resources to this effort. We have selected one, and we are working through the negotiations process. And as Ed mentioned, you will see a design services contract in the coming month once those negotiations are complete. We do have 3 separate design professional groups with us and consultants for the suite of projects. You're familiar with all of them. They include SWI Ardura, Peak Engineering, and J.E. Fuller. Those folks are working on the individual designs for those suites of projects. As mentioned, a survey and geotech was underway. Then we got bombarded with some snow, and they continue to work, but frankly, they have been slowed. And we continue to do what we can to work through LIDAR and some other means so that they can continue to design, but the actual physical survey work on the ground is somewhat delayed, but with the warmer temps that we do expect in March, we think we're going to make some progress pretty quickly, and those teams will be ready as soon as they can get into the field for good conditions. It is important to note, and we wanted to highlight that the CMAR, the construction manager at risk, will likely retain a public relations firm. In the past, you've seen the city utilize Beta PR. We don't know which firm they will choose, but it will include very similar messaging as you've seen in the past, but it will now be more construction focused and more focused on what the impacts to residents will be as we start to move into longer term mitigations. And again, the CMAR will work with that sub-consultant in coordination effort with our TAC. And as soon as we know whom that firm is, we will make sure to introduce them to you, likely next month. Wanted to briefly hit on Parkway Basin. This project, you will receive a very, very detailed briefing next Monday evening at your joint city county Board of Supervisors meeting. This is one that Lucinda Andriani will be presenting on behalf of the county and the Flood Control District next Monday. So not a lot of detail here. I think that the highlights really are that it is a county project. It is still in their procurement process. They are not in a position where they can disclose a whole lot about it yet, but they will be there by next Monday. Final scoping's underway. The final plan and construction approach will be out soon. There is an intergovernmental agreement that's in development at this time so that when all of it is lined up, we will be a participant. As recall, it is on city property. It is funded, and this funding that we secured NRCS through the county must be expended by June of '23. And by expended, we mean completed, the project. So we're on a fast track to work with the county and make sure that this gets delivered by June of '23. And of course, it does start or remain on the city parcel. And weather is now kind of coming into question for a lot of these projects, as we do anticipate muddy and wet spring conditions. So we're working hard to not let that be a deterrent. That is all I have for Schultz Creek, and on behalf of MAC, we hope that's a good, quick update on this one. And again, next Monday, you'll get a lot more on Park Basin. Ed, you're going to cover Schultz Creek.
Okay, so we're moving over to the west side, Schultz Creek and the 2022 pipeline fire. So again, we're looking at a series of projects in the Schultz Creek area as well. The detention basins obviously were complete this last fall and are functioning. We have 2 projects between those basins and Highway 180. We'll go into those details. The Highway 180 crossing, which we do have our team from SWI Ardura here to go into some details there and some new updates. And then a very short update on Francis Short Pond as we go out of Schultz Creek and down into the Rio de Flag. So we have those 2 projects between the basins and Highway 180. One is a channel improvement or a channel stabilization. This would be funded through the Emergency Watershed Protection, EWP funding. We are still waiting for the state to get their appropriation from the federal fund for that. So we are in constant communication with the state NRCS representation of when we will get that. The city match for this project will be funded through that new stormwater rate or the Department of Forestry and Fire Management if we are able to get their cash match on it. The other project is a county project on Eldon Lookout Road. This is moving through designs at 60% design. This is to provide a larger culvert on Eldon Lookout Road. We should mention that both of these projects are designed to reduce sediment and downstream debris impacts in Coconino Estates, the downtown, and the south side neighborhoods. So these are, while we haven't talked about them much, these are rather important projects for the whole drainage system to reduce impacts downstream. Going into a little more detail on the Eldon Lookout Road, again, this is a county project. It's being delivered by a county public works, currently at 60% design. It's designed to convey the 2-inch and 45-minute post-fire storm under Eldon Lookout Road. Currently, it goes over the road. It's been scouring out the road and scouring out the downstream private property. So by creating this, they will be able to reduce scour and sediment transport to the Coyote Springs neighborhood, Coconino Estates, and then down through the rest of the city. And we are working with them, the city's working with the county on getting this designed as quickly as possible. And with that, we'll move over to the Schultz Creek at Highway 180. I'd love to talk about it, but there's people way more competent at it than I am. So we will have some representation from our designer go into some details. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, my name's Stephen Irwin with SWI Ardura. See some new faces since the last time I presented. We're working on this box culvert project right now. Does the mouse work? All right. So there's a box culvert under Highway 180 right now. intercepts, or it takes flows from Schultz Creek, runs down 180, comes out through the Stavana neighborhood into the Rio de Flag. What our project does is we're designing a new sediment basin at the inlet, and then we will route those flows into a new box culvert, which will go under Highway 180 through the church, Lutheran Church parking lot, direct route to Rio de Flag. We had submitted 30% plans. ADOT, county, and the city have all given us comments on those plans, so we can move forward with our 60% design. As with spruce wash projects, we are kind of held up with this snow, getting our detailed topo survey. But in the meantime, we've been working on legal descriptions to start that property acquisition. We've met with the Lutheran Church. I'd say they've been pretty positive meetings. Been coordinating with the utility companies. There are some dry utilities, gas, electric. There's some overhead electric there. Looks like some phone pedestals that we need to coordinate, and a water line that needs to be relocated. So we're working on those. And really, as far as schedule, we're just pushing as hard as we can, going as far as we can, hoping this snow will melt and we can finish our topo survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just so I'm a visual, the building at the bottom there on the right, is that the, who occupies that
That's
building?
ACE.
ACE?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so the basin is that patch of forest trees where the flooding went through before it crossed over?
Yes, so this outline here, the sediment basin, is that area before it snowed. You could see all the mud and debris. That's this area here. And what we're doing there is, hopefully those detention and sediment basins at the Y, Eldon and Schultz Y, hopefully those will take most of the sediment. But we identified this as another, one last shot to try to trap some of that mud and debris, keeping it from getting downstream into the city. Also trying to keep this from plugging, because if this culvert plugs, you still run into the same issues of overtopping. So that's what this sediment basin is.
So this basin comes up against private property lines?
This is on Museum of Northern Arizona property.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Do you have a rough idea of when this project will be completed?
I do not. I have to rely on Ed for that.
That's a great question, and it's one we get every time. Yeah, we are working as fast as we can. We're really hoping to get through 60%, 90% design pretty quickly. We have set up a focus group on this that includes the county, ADOT, a number of different engineers, both internally as well as through the consultants, and then obviously the relevant city partners, or city staff. So we're moving quickly, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but I mean, the snowpack really does slow us down in terms of getting the topo, moving with that. But we are moving concurrently with real estate, now that we have the legal descriptions. We are hoping to meet with the Lutheran Church again very shortly, as well as Museum of Northern Arizona, so the two private property owners that are most impacted. And we have set up meetings with the church and hoping to set up a meeting with M&A in the near future. We have been talking with them today, actually, to move that. So a lot of this is moving real time. We are moving as quick as we can. Same period, we're working through procurement, so we are putting together the draft letters that we need to send through procurement and legal for the SOQs, so the Statement of Qualifications for CMAR. So lots of irons in the fire. To give you a real answer, we're not quite there yet, but we are trying to push this as fast as we can, including looking at design elements that can be built off-site. So essentially bringing in modular components instead of building on-site so we can move it quicker. That's not really answering your question, but it's. the
No,
best we
not
can do.
really. Well, I mean, I'm totally convinced you're working very diligently on this. There's no doubt about it. That's obvious. But I'm just kind of curious. Are you thinking, you know, maybe this summer, or will this go into next year, or what? You must have a, what in engineering we called swag, scientific wild ass guess.
I wish we did, but there's so many variables that go into it. I mean, just how long the snowpack goes, how long the procurement process takes, if there's any snags with our partners, since, you know, it's not just city property here, we are talking county and ADOT as well. I mean, so far we're working great all together, everything's going very swimmingly, but there's so many unknowns. I'd hate to give you any, even if swag on it. I mean, our hope is to push this forward as fast as possible, and to give you anything beyond that is a little tough, just because there are so many unknowns. I mean, it'd be fantastic if we can do it this summer. That would be awesome. I'd have a huge party, but I don't want to even give you a swag on that, just because there are so many unknowns.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes, I was going to ask you, with the church being right there and you have to go right through their parking lot, what are they going to do? I mean, I'm just kind of curious. Where do you put people? Because if I remember, there's not a whole lot of space anywhere, like blank space that's open. So anyway, curious.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's something we're definitely gonna have to work with the church with, because it's not just the church, they have their school there as well, and they do have summer programs. So the hope is, and I'm gonna probably butcher the terms here, so Stephen, you can correct me here. The hope with doing, you know, these modular type of improvements is that we will not have a huge footprint. So we do not have to open it up. We're gonna have people down in there doing precast concrete, where we can actually have a smaller trench footprint, so that they can still be utilizing the majority of their parking lot and the entirety of the school while we're doing that work. And Stephen, feel free to, if they have anything to add to that. I don't learn the right terminology on some of that, but.
No, I think the only thing I would add, it's different with design, but we have already done a geotechnical investigation. Our subconsultant brought in a drill rig to get soil samples. We had to coordinate with school drop-off and pick-up. You know, I see that same approach during construction. It'll be a little more challenging, but, you know, we're really able to keep our footprint as far, you know, along this property line as we can, and give as much circulation through this parking lot, but it will certainly be an inconvenience.
I don't see any other questions or comments. Thank you.
All right, and yeah, hopefully next month we'll have more on the, not hopefully, we will have more details as we move forward through this. To keep the theme of snow, Francis Short Pond, the dredging that is on hold due to the snowpack and the expected spring runoff. We do have a large snow water equivalent up on the peaks, which means that we do expect an extended spring runoff coming through here, which would definitely make it difficult to do a dredge operation in an inline basin such as Francis Short. So we will assess in the coming months and be back with you with more details as we go through. Quick update on neighborhood mitigations. This was going to be presented by Patrick O'Connor, our Water Services Operations Section Director. Unfortunately, he was called away on a family medical issue. We do have to have in April an update on the short-term mitigations. So this would be the sandbags, the barrier, those engineering assessments, the door-to-door assessments, that type of work. We will have that update in April. I know we have had some residents' questions on that, so we did want to address that. We are assessing the new flood risk models for both Schultz and Spruce Wash. So both washes have new flood risk models that we are assessing right now. And we are also looking at the new flood alert thresholds as both the watershed and Spruce Wash improves slightly. And also as we have those very large basins in Schultz Creek, we are looking at what those new rave alert thresholds should be. And we may or likely will adjust those due to the new data that we have. So this mitigation is funded by this new stormwater rate adjustment that includes funding for sandbags, barrier purchase, the engineering assessments, the door-to-door assistance, or door-to-door assessments, as well as the individual assistance for elderly and disabled. As a reminder, the call center is open, never has shut down. That is 928-213-2102 during business hours. So people can call for more information. Again, we probably will not have a whole lot more information until April as we start to ramp up for the monsoon season. And with that, that is all we have to prepare, or well, I can't speak, all we have prepared. Definitely open for questions. We have a number of folks here besides myself that can take questions and comments. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? And then we have some online public commenters. I have one question, and it's about the spruce wash projects. Is the number 2 that you showed on the map, the triangle, is that still a lower priority and you're thinking about doing it if needed after the other projects?
Good question, Mayor. The number 2 project is the wedge detention basin. And this project at one point was, in concept, the entire parcel or the entire wedge. We have revisited that. At one point, we were hoping to eliminate it, but we are likely going to utilize a portion of the parcel. It's coming out to about half of it towards the eastern side or the Safeway side of the parcel. And it will work well and coordinate with the parkway basins. It will likely not get delivered right away, but it is a project that the engineering team is looking at and modeling to how large it needs to be to create the impact it needs to create through the entire system. So I think you will see a project on this site, but it will not be the same scope and scale as we had originally thought it might be.
Thank you. So Stacy, can we take the online commenters?
Mayor and Council, I have Stephen Purr. Stephen, you can go ahead and address Mayor and Council.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Daggett, Vice Mayor Aslan, and the members of the City Council. Couple of quick questions. Number one, in the past 30 days or so, Spruce Wash was given a notice for a public meeting, and the people of Pipeline West would like one also. So we'd like to have a public meeting, so that's a request. Number two, the people in Spruce Wash also had an update on their model in the past 30 plus days. We've had no update in our model, and I'm kind of befuddled by that. And it seems like we're not going to get one until April. And I think my neighbors in Coconino Estates deserve one a little sooner. And if I look back in last June, after the fire, we had a model within a month. After the next month, we knew the efficiencies of that model, the number of walls that were in place that weren't going to allow the water to flow through Coconino Estates, but to flood my street in West Savannah. A couple months later, we also had, me and my neighbors built another wall. So we're trying to do what we can at our expense, and we are now 5 to 7 months down the road, and we don't have a model that's been updated yet. And I think that I'd like to know when we're going to get one. I think people, especially in Coconino Estates, who have come before you, would certainly like to know when they're going to get updated again. So, thirdly, the culvert in 180, I understand the design is going forward. I heard what was just mentioned from Ed. I was wondering, when does he think he's going to complete the negotiations with the church and with the Northern Museum? When's that going to be completed as we move forward? Those are my comments for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Staff, would you like to respond to those before we go to the next?
What's that? Oh, yeah, yes, okay, sorry. So for the modeling, yeah, we do have that modeled, but we need to make sure that what we share is accurate and precise. So that does go through multiple iterations. So Joe Lovrich with J.A. Fuller, we're still working with J.A. Fuller on making sure that the model that we prepare and that we show is the most up to date. So I understand the frustration on that, but I mean, it does go through different iterations. What we presented, or what we were given, as I should say, immediately after the Schultz Basins did have some issues that were still being resolved. So we will go back to J.A. Fuller and see when we can get a final model for Schultz Creek, the Coconino Estates area. And that will, more to come. Hopefully next month we can have a better preparation for that. Definitely understand the need for community meetings, both Schultz Creek and Spruce Wash. So those are coming up. Definitely we don't have those on the book yet, but we are working through of when those will be planned. What was the third question?
When will negotiations be finished?
Negotiations, I would leave that up to our real estate group. So we will get you an answer from our real estate group on that.
Thank you. And the public meetings, do you anticipate the public meeting for the Schultz Wash being similar to the one that was just held for Spruce Wash? Where you have maps and people can come take a look and...
Yeah, it'd be very similar. So we'll definitely have it as a public meeting, hopefully virtual, or not virtual, so hopefully hybrid. We'll have a virtual option as well as an in-person. We'll definitely have maps at that time. So we'll have detailed maps for the neighborhood, as well as engineering resources, so people there to answer questions. So yeah, we do hope to have a very similar level of service between the two impacted watersheds.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Ed, I was just curious, what conversations have been had with the museum? How I understand it, in that area, there was some sensitive Native American sites there. So is that been discussed and mitigated so far?
Not so far. So we do have Mark Rivas with our Heritage Preservation Office here within the city, who has been notified of this potential project or of the 30% designs. I believe he was brought in this week. So our real estate office with our Heritage Preservation Office will be assessing that. So there will be that component. For the museum, we're still setting up a date for the conversation about this project. We have been talking with them about the EWP, the potential EWP channel stabilization project that goes through another one of their parcels. So we've been in contact with them since the fall on that project. And the county has as well for Eldon Lookout Road, because that touches part of their parcel as well. So we will continue to work on that, and obviously that's something that's going to ramp up pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that was our last public comment. So any additional questions or comments from council? That was great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Stay warm.
All right, moving down to item number 13. Do we have any public participation for items not on the agenda?
Not tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Then down to 14, informational items, 2 from Mayor, Council, and City Manager, future agenda item requests. Let's start down with Councilmember Matthews. Let's start down here with Councilmember House.
So it's not necessarily a future agenda item request at this point, but I had a very interesting and productive conversation this week with Mark Cox and the Boys and Girls Club. I am getting it right this time because I called them the wrong name all throughout our conversation, and he was kind enough not to correct me. But about the topic of further engagement opportunities for the city of Flagstaff in partnership with them and other agencies and organizations for advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations. We particularly were talking about upcoming AAPI Awareness Month and just the potential that we have as a city organization and with other groups to further some of those conversations and opportunities for celebration within the community. And so that's going to be an ongoing conversation that I'm in with him and looking at opportunities for furthering that. But I just wanted to bring it to council's awareness at this point. That's all.
Thank you, and thank you for having those conversations. Councilmember Sweet?
Thank you. I'll make this real quick. A reminder that this Friday is First Friday Art Walk downtown.
Councilmember McCarthy?
Thank you. I might mention that Ms. Sweet and Ms. Matthews and I went to the badging ceremony for the police officers that just graduated from the first class of our new law enforcement training academy. And that was, as the city manager said, this room was literally packed, standing room only. Very, very moving ceremony. Thank you.
Councilmember Matthews, just to confirm, you don't have anything? Okay. Councilmember Harris?
Yes. Saturday, the weather broke, and the students, the black students at Northern Arizona University was able to have their Black Renaissance that they do every year, and it was an amazing event. We have some talented, very talented students there, and so they will be performing with us at the Juneteenth celebration this summer. And they also were excited that City Council member was there, and so they really appreciated our support. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, very briefly, we had a Sustainability Commission meeting this week. Not much to report there, just going over some the community grant applicants. And I'm glad you guys were able to make it over to the Police Academy thing on Thursday. I had intended to go to that, but there was a berm in my driveway the time I was ready to get out of there. So that didn't work out for me. I'm an eternal optimist, so I'm late to everything because of who I am as a person. And when I plan out a trip, I remember the quickest time it ever took me to get there, and I give myself 1 minute less than that. So I'm very sad I ended up missing that meeting. Looking forward to future Police Academy graduations. I am planning on shoveling my berm tomorrow and getting over to Public Works for a ride-along tomorrow afternoon. I'm looking forward to that. And
Think you're gonna make it out of the neighborhood area?
well, yeah, maybe they can come pick me up at the top of High Country. Looking forward to that. I know that many of you have gone on ride-alongs with the snow removal department, and looking forward to adding to the adventure.
So I did have a great ride along with Parks Department staff. That was eye-opening, and I encourage council members to do that because it helps in answering questions from the public when you can see how things are done. And to all of our staff that put in extra hours during snow removal times, thank you so much. I know that you have been working really, really hard, and it is appreciated and noticed. And I think that was all that I had. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for a very thoughtful discussion tonight on many important topics. I want to take the opportunity and note what has already been sent to you by email a short while ago, that non-essential city facilities will be closed tomorrow. We had our latest weather briefing this afternoon. We have put in place a protocol internally to make these decisions in advance of these storm events. We started doing that last week with great success, which enables our employees to plan, and frankly, it enables our community to be aware of these things in advance. So we will make this announcement at tomorrow morning's operations meeting, but the word is now out that Non-essential facilities closed for the day. Those who can work remotely are, of course, encouraged to do so. We want everybody to be home and be safe if they can do so. Thanks.
So in addition to staying home if you can and being safe, I also ask that to the extent possible that we remain patient because we've had so much snow. And even friends of mine that love snow have started to not. So, oh, Councilmember Harris.
Just ask one question. I'm just kind of curious. Where do we put all the snow?
It's becoming a problem.
Do we have somewhere that we usually dump it?
We do. We
okay.
have depositories for it,
Okay.
but we are maxing those out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it is becoming a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
All right, so we are adjourned. Everyone get home safely.